at a cafe in Wujiacheng Moda Dragon Kingdom. Are you Chen Yang? Dr. Ma Yuhua frowned as she scrutinized the young man before her. Yes, I'm Chen Yang, your blind date for today, Chen Yang said with a smile. Ma Yuhua glanced at Chen Yang's attire with displeasure, then looked down at the introduction card he had handed over. She instantly exploded. You're from a vocational school. Ma Yuhua was incredulous. Yalonggang vocational school next door. Chen Yang smiled. Are you kidding me? I'm a Ritter PhD. Do you think you're worthy of being my blind date? With that, she picked up her handbag ready to leave. Seeing her about to go, Chen Yang hurriedly blocked her. Worthy or not, how would you know without giving it a try? I heard you're in nuclear physics. Coincidentally, I've done quite a bit of research in that area too. How about we chat? You, a vocational school student, want to discuss nuclear physics with a female physics PhD. What kind of international joke is that? Ma Yuhua said with utter contempt. That's not necessarily true. Chen Yang smiled. Isn't controllable nuclear fusion all the rage right now? As it happens, I know quite a bit about that too. We could talk about it. Ha ha ha. This is hilarious. You actually dare to claim you know a lot about controllable nuclear fusion. My God, who gave you the courage and confidence? Do you even know the processes and steps of controllable nuclear fusion? Ma Yuhua sneered condescendingly. If it were about anything else, she might not have much to say, but when it came to controllable nuclear fusion, that was right in her wheelhouse. She specialized in it. Even other domestic institutions wouldn't dare discuss fusion in front of her. No one knew better than them. What's so hard about it? Just atomic collisions, fusion releasing heat, then more collisions, more heat. That's it. Yeah, so-called controllable nuclear fusion just means making it shut down whenever you want. Chen Yang said nonchalantly. The female PhD's contempt deepened. Did you look that up on Baidu? The female PhD said. Well, I checked a little, Chen Yang replied. Even for a rigorous and complex topic like this, even undergraduate theses rarely use Baidu Baiki as a source. You probably don't even know what CNKI is, do you? Ma Yuhua smiled, her contempt clear. You haven't even used CNKI, let alone foreign literature. I'm not good at English, so isn't it only natural for a vocational school student to not know English? Ma Yuhua said ruthlessly. Chen Yang had nothing to argue. He was indeed severely unbalanced in his subjects. English was his weak point. He got headaches when he saw English and felt dazed when he heard it. When he took the high school entrance exam, due to his weak subjects, he only managed to get into Modu Vocational School. Now about to upgrade from secondary school to junior college, he still couldn't avoid English. To avoid English in the college entrance exam, he had to work hard to get a direct admission exemption. If I can build a tokamak device, I can be exempted and directly admitted. But that thing cost too much money. Even with the help of the system, he still needed 200,000 to 300,000. Luckily, after this blind date and earning the commission, he could make up the rest. I have nothing else to do here. I'm leaving. I don't have time to waste like this. With that, she stood up to go. Now, still 10 minutes short. If she left now, he wouldn't get the money. The matchmaking site said they had to maintain effective communication or else they'd deduct money. Chen Yang grabbed her. What are you doing? I have some materials here on controllable nuclear fusion. Let me explain. Huh. Not many people would go to such lengths. Ma Yuhua sneered again. Let go. Chen Yang wouldn't let go easily. 10 minutes left. How could he fail so close to the finish? After dragging and pushing for over 10 minutes of explanation, Ma Yuhua finally couldn't take it anymore. Fine, I'm in a hurry now. They'll read it carefully when I get back, okay? She snatched the materials, not giving Chen Yang a chance, and turned to flee. Chen Yang smiled at the corner of his mouth, 5,000 in hand, and the last piece of material is complete. This controllable nuclear fusion technology, he understood it better than anyone. He had even sent the materials to the Dragon Kingdom's Supreme Research Institution, but it was all in vain. Never even got a response. Who would read a vocational school student's paper on controllable nuclear fusion? Preposterous. He even went to the Dragon Kingdom Nuclear Physics Research Institute, but was turned away before he could even enter. The entrance exam was coming up and the system's controllable nuclear fusion mission was about to expire. If he wasn't recognized soon, the mission would close and he would lose everything. The tech system he had obtained earlier was still at level 1. Since none of you believe me, I'll build it myself. A vocational school student isn't qualified to know nuclear physics. Then I'll show you. 5,000 yuan credited. The intermediary paid. Chen Yang beamed. The last piece of material money had arrived. Total cost, 287500 yuan. Research is really expensive. This was money he earned through blood donation, selling plasma, and even selling his looks on blind dates. Happily, he placed an order for the last batch of materials through the school's ordering website. All materials were prepared only once. If he could make it himself, he never bought finished products. Tokamak device, here I come. Chen Yang's eyes were filled with excitement and anticipation. He was eager to see what this legendary sun would look like when it was built. At the Modu Atomic Energy Research Institute of the Dragon Kingdom Academy of Sciences. Yuhua, how did the blind date go today? A female colleague asked with a smile. Don't even mention it. I met a weirdo. Forget about his look and character. His brain is seriously messed up. A vocational school student dared to discuss controllable nuclear fusion with me. Huh. If I hadn't signed a confidentiality agreement, I would have blasted him. What? A vocational school student. Discussing nuclear fusion. Is he out of his mind? Now every Tom, Dick, and Harry dares to talk about nuclear fusion. Has a major national strategic project become so common? A while ago, someone submitted a paper on controllable nuclear fusion, saying they could build a tokamak device for only 500 yuan. I threw it straight in the trash. This is the Chinese Academy of Sciences, not a story collection. The female colleague said with equal contempt. She was in charge of receiving outgoing mail for the academy. Same here. He not only talked about it, but also made an experimental plan. Here, take a look. I want look. A vocational school student knowing nuclear fusion. Utter nonsense. Colleague Yang Shui said to Ma Yuhua. The file was left on the lab bench. At 3 p.m., an old man arrived at the Chinese Academy of Sciences lab. If anyone was there, they would recognize him as the head of science and technology in the Dragon Kingdom Strategic Bureau, Peng Tianfang. Director Peng came by to check on the progress of controlled nuclear fusion. Foreign-controlled nuclear fusion had already achieved 500 seconds. Dragon Kingdom lagged behind in this area, currently reaching only 300 seconds, exactly half the duration. Though it seemed a small gap, every tiny difference led to vast consequences, and he feared they would become increasingly dependent on others. Thus he was quite anxious. Today's inspection happened to pass by this location, so he decided to see the situation here. Having a background in nuclear physics himself, he had no difficulties understanding the work. His secretary intended to notify the lab personnel, but Director Peng stopped him. Then he slowly walked inside. People around were busy with their own tasks. Seeing that they had their own access control, they assumed them to be visitors from other institutions for exchange and study, so they paid no attention. Peng Tianfang reached the experimental bench. After a quick look around, he felt quite satisfied. The Dragon Science Academy was indeed the national academic benchmark. Every step was done well and standardly, and the researchers demonstrated high scientific literacy. I have a feeling that with this momentum, we can surely catch up to the United States soon, Peng Tianfang said with a smile. The secretary couldn't help but nod. As Peng Tianfang walked, he suddenly noticed an unattended document on a table, and his brows furrowed. This was the Institute of Atomic Energy Physics. All materials were absolutely confidential. Every file must be controlled. A document lying carelessly on the table like this already violated basic confidentiality principles. He then walked over and picked it up. On the design and executable operation plan of tokamak devices. Peng Tianfang's brows were tightly furrowed. Such an important document left casually on the table. Utter lack of confidentiality awareness. Secretary Fu Jianxing couldn't help whispering. Peng Tianfang suppressed his anger, then opened the document to read its contents. The first page's content completely captured his attention. In summary, this method can fully achieve controlled nuclear fusion, enabling start and stop at any time and completing the creation of an artificial sun. Seeing the introductory paragraph, Peng Tianfang was utterly stunned. He even ignored the confidentiality breach. He continued flipping through the pages. The more he read, the more astonished and shaken he became. Genius. Absolutely genius. Using the strong transition energy of an intermediate state to achieve the ultra-high temperature ignition state. It's unconstrained and brilliant. A stroke of genius. An absolute stroke of genius. Who came up with this? Peng Tianfang couldn't help trembling all over. It was too shocking. Director Peng, do you mean this plan can really achieve controlled nuclear fusion? Fu Jianxing asked in shock. Controlled nuclear fusion, proposed as early as the 20th century, has always been the direction scientists strive. Whoever first breaks through controlled nuclear fusion technology will surely break free from energy dependence and leap to become the world's #1 superpower. A hallmark of the transition from ancient to modern society was fossil energy replacing original bioenergy. However, fossil energy is unevenly distributed worldwide. Middle Eastern countries are fossil energy giants, while others rely on this industrial blood to survive. If controlled nuclear fusion succeeds now, it would completely eliminate dependence on these fossil resources. More importantly, such energy is inexhaustible. 1 liter of seawater can produce energy equivalent to 300 liters of petroleum. Crucially, controlled nuclear fusion uses deuterium and tritium from seawater. After fusion, it turns directly into harmless water, producing no pollution, a truly clean energy source. Whoever truly masters this technology essentially enters the new energy era first. Then Peng Tianfang directly called Yuan Dawei, head of the Dragon Science Academy's nuclear energy group. Old Yuan, how long were you hiding this from me? You've already broken through controlled nuclear fusion. Why didn't you tell me? Peng Tianfang said with some anger. Yuan Dawei on the other end was bewildered. Director Peng, what are you talking about? When did we break through controlled nuclear fusion? I don't even know about this. How could I report it? Peng Tianfang heard the voice didn't sound fake. You really don't know? Of course not. Besides, I don't think it's true. Director Peng, did you read it carefully? Are you doubting my professionalism? No. Director Peng, I just find it very unlikely. According to previous projections, even under the best circumstances, it would take at least 3 more years to complete the theoretical design of controlled nuclear fusion. Current controlled nuclear fusion can only sustain operation within 1,000 seconds, Yuan Dawei said. Impossible. The plan in my hand is already a mature design. I specially had someone check several sets of data. They are accurate. Moreover, the overall design is novel, bold, and highly innovative. There's absolutely no mistake. Peng Tianfang, known for his strictness, rarely praised any design. Even with his pickiness, he found nothing to fault in this design. Yuan Dawei was stunned. Could someone from his own research group have secretly achieved something big without telling him? He quickly asked Peng Tianfang, who designed it. Peng Tianfang paused, then looked at the document in his hand. Finally, on the last page, he saw the author's name, Chen Yang. Shanghai Longgang Technical School. Peng Tianfang felt as if someone was playing a joke on him. This was undoubtedly controlled nuclear fusion technology. Moreover, from the information, the feasibility was extremely strong. It could definitely be realized. But such material coming from a vocational school student. He didn't believe it. Absolutely not. The most important thing now was to verify the authenticity of the material. No, the most important thing is to ensure confidentiality. He then walked directly to the dean's office and dialed the red telephone on the desk. Connect me to Feng Kaishan of the Secrecy Bureau. Soon the call connected. Old Feng immediately sealed off the Shanghai Dragon Science Academy at the highest level. What happened? Quafu succeeded. The 973 project might be completed ahead of schedule. There was a moment of silence on the other end. He'll arrange it immediately. Not even a mosquito will get in. Soon the Secrecy Bureau personnel entered. The entire Dragon Science Academy was put under control. Seeing the sudden tension, everyone was stunned. Because all recent projects were proceeding routinely without any breakthrough progress or strategic-level implications for Dragon Kingdom. No one understood, but everyone could feel the security level had been raised to an unprecedented degree. Ma Yuhua and others were especially stunned, staring at the security personnel, standing like spears at the door, completely frozen. They couldn't fathom why these people had suddenly arrived. What baffled them even more was that their laboratory seemed to have become a focal point of surveillance, and they were immediately required to sign non-disclosure agreements and even surrender their phones. At that moment, Peng Tianfang walked in slowly. I imagine you're all curious about what's happening and why such a big fuss is being made. The people below couldn't help but nod. All I can say is that someone may have made history at the Lonka Institute. Though I don't know why they've remained silent, I must use my own way to tell that genius this is Dragon Country, our own turf. Whatever you want to do, just go ahead freely. With us here, no malicious forces can cause any trouble. There's no need to hold back. After speaking, he swept his gaze across the room with commanding authority. Seeing Peng Tianfang like this, everyone present felt a jolt of surprise. They were certain that this was a man tempered by fire and steel, for no one could carry such an aura of menace. Then Peng Tianfang's expression shifted as he turned to Ma Yuhua, who stood there timidly. Hello, I'm Peng Tianfang from the Bureau of Science and Technology. I'd like to ask you about something. Please go ahead, Ma Yuhua said nervously. I'd like to know how well you usually handle confidential matters, Peng Tianfang inquired. Ma Yuhua's face turned pale with shock. Sir, I have never violated confidentiality principles. I always keep my documents neatly organized, and when I leave I never speak of what shouldn't be spoken nor take what shouldn't be taken. Then how do you explain this document? This top-secret material concerning national strategy. How could you carelessly leave it on the table? As he spoke, he placed the document before her. This? Ma Yuhua was utterly dumbfounded when she saw it. You call this a national core secret? This was given to me by my blind date. He's just a vocational school graduate. How could he possibly possess a national core strategic secret? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Ma Yuhua denied it outright. Seeing her reaction, which didn't seem like a lie, Peng Tianfang couldn't help but frown. You say he's a vocational school graduate. Your blind date. Yes, he's a strange one. I merely made a slight comment, and he dared to tell me he understands controlled nuclear fusion. He even brazenly claimed to have built a tokamak device. We've poured immense manpower, resources, and funding into this project, all top tier in the nation, yet we've only sustained it for 300 seconds, and the key issues remain unresolved. And he boasts of having cracked it. Ma Yuhua's lips curled with disdain. Before leaving, he insisted on giving this to me. If I weren't in a hurry to return, I wouldn't have bothered to take it. Hearing this, Peng Tianfang was momentarily taken aback, never expecting such a story. Have you read this proposal? Read a vocational school graduate's proposal on controlled nuclear fusion. Only if I had a screw loose. I have read it. Director Peng, I didn't mean you have a screw loose. I meant, the method in this proposal is feasible. I've already convened experts for evaluation, and we should have results soon. Upon hearing this, Ma Yuhua's face was filled with shock. Director Peng, you're not joking, are you? Do I look like She was intimidated by his stern, piercing gaze and dared not speak. Soon a soldier hurried in from outside and whispered something to Peng Tianfang. Peng Tianfang's eyes blazed with intensity. He couldn't help but exclaim, "Excellent! Excellent! Heaven blesses Dragon Country! Heaven blesses Dragon Country! Issue the order." Lonka Institute is now on highest alert. At the same time, requests special forces to immediately seal off Longang Vocational School. Everyone must sign confidentiality agreements or violators will be charged with treason. Ma Yuhua, standing nearby, trembled at these words. The scale of this operation was overwhelming. Peng Tianfang turned to look at her expression one of sheer astonishment. He said slowly, "The atomic energy experts have just evaluated the proposal. It's feasible and highly executable. That means the young man you met on the blind date wasn't boasting, it's all true." Ma Yuhua was stunned speechless. "Now everyone assemble. We're heading to Longang Vocational School," Peng Tianfang announced to the crowd. Longang Vocational School Laboratory Building. The school was merely a technical secondary school equivalent to high school. Expecting a high-tech lab building was a pipe dream. The so-called laboratory building was nothing more than a dilapidated 3-story structure, its equipment coated in dust, much of it old and broken. Inside the third-floor lab, Chen Yang stared intently at his experimental setup. Doing experiments is such a money-draining endeavor. One experiment costs 300,000. What a ripoff. Chen Yang grumbled. If the big shots in controlled nuclear fusion research heard this, they'd probably curse in anger. Which country's fusion research budget isn't in the tens of billions? 300,000. That might not even cover the parts. If this fails, it'll be another year or more. Won't have so many ways to earn money this time, Chen Yang lamented. For the past 6 months, had been working odd jobs and scrimping to save up for experimental equipment. This damn system, why assign a task like controlled nuclear fusion? It's pure torture. Adjusting the device, Chen Yang slowly placed the required materials inside. To achieve controlled nuclear fusion, there were 4 main steps. First, open the device. Second, insert the materials. Third, close the device. Fourth, press the switch to ignite. Then the energy from the fusion would be converted and stored. Following that, the liquid was poured in. The blue liquid was protium and deuterium, which Chen Yang had extracted from seawater himself. Though it had taken considerable time, seeing the results now made it worthwhile. He gently closed the device. Then, looking at the contents inside, his heart was filled with apprehension. If this fails, how many more blind dates will I need to go on to earn enough money? Chen Yang silently prayed for success on his first try. Meanwhile, the entire Longang Vocational School was sealed off. A dozen Dragon Knight helicopters rumbled, hovering overhead. Figures, sharp and efficient, leaped from the helicopters, securing the high ground. On the ground, armored vehicles rolled into the campus. Fully armed soldiers, faces smeared with camouflage, stormed into the school, occupying every path. All the students were utterly stunned. Such a spectacle was rare. Even in movies, its sheer scale overwhelmed. Many whispered among themselves, some even reaching for their phones to capture the moment for their social media, only to "Don't panic, students. We are conducting an anti-terrorism drill. Please cooperate," said the leading war dragon officer, his sunglasses masking a stern expression. "A drill? Do you take us for 3-year-olds? Some wanted to retort, but the icy glare from the officer silenced them instantly. At the principal's office, the principal and others were receiving a famous star. Michelle. Michelle was the shining phoenix that had soared from their school. Back in her school days, she was a beloved singer who captivated the campus. Later, she took part in a talent show held at the school. Gradually, she walked the path to stardom, her career now blazing brilliantly as a top celebrity. Just 2 days ago, her lead role in Love Me Leave Me became a massive hit, catapulting her fame to its peak. "Michelle, since you're back, would you like to see Chen Yang?" Principal Xiao Wei asked tentatively. Once Michelle and Chen Yang's romance was an open secret. Everyone knew that Chen Yang had enrolled at Longang Technical School to pursue her. Later, he single-handedly orchestrated her participation in the talent show. Now that she had returned in triumph, he wondered. Michelle's expression wavered with inner conflict. Her agent immediately chimed in with a smile. "Principal, Michelle is no ordinary citizen now. She's a star under constant scrutiny. If Chen Yang came from a prestigious family like the Wangs, it wouldn't be an issue. But him, TSK, he'll never be in the same world as Michelle. Do you want to see her years of hard work dragged down by him? Isn't that right, Michelle?" Michelle's face twisted in agony as she recalled Chen Yang's kindness, how he practiced singing for her, bought her breakfast every day, scrimped to get her clothes and makeup, even worked as a servant for half a year to rent her practice equipment, and ultimately fought off the scoundrel who tried to take advantage of her, saving her from deception. Each memory weighed heavy, yet her thoughts turned to her career. "You are a goddess. You cannot succumb to mortal feelings. Those investors would never support a married woman. Principal Sister Kong is right. He and I are now from different worlds." Then she pulled a card from her bag. "I heard he's tinkering in the lab. Please give this money to him. Let him pursue something practical, face reality, and stop wasting his youth." Xiaowei looked embarrassed, but felt compelled to defend Chen Yang. Chen Yang's devotion to her was known throughout the school, setting a benchmark for boyfriends. And now she dismissed it with a simple "we're not right for each other." Wasn't that a bit too heartless and ungrateful? but Xiao Wei thought it best not to interfere. He slid the card back to her. You should give this to him yourself. Michelle is far too busy for that. Even today, she had to turn down a multi-million advertising contract to Agent Kong Luan said. Just then a roar came from outside, startling everyone. Peering out, they saw helicopters flying overhead. Could it be that young Master Wang hired helicopters to pick you up? Oh, how romantic. But we must play hard to get it. Don't make it easy for him, Kong Luan remarked. Outside, Long Zhan and his men had arrived at the principal's office door. Halt. Miss Michelle is inside. Wait here if you have business. Two suited bodyguards raised their hands to block Long Zhan. Move aside. I have urgent matters with the principal. Nothing is more urgent than Miss Michelle's affairs. Wait. Long Zhan's eyes turned cold, and with a single kick he sent the blocking bodyguard flying 3 zhang away. Security Bureau on official duty. Obstructing us is treason. The bodyguard's face turned pale with fear as he lay on the ground, too terrified to move. The other was paralyzed by the palpable killing intent radiating from Long Zhan. Kong Luan, hearing the commotion, frowned. When she saw Long Zhan enter, she immediately erupted. Who are you? Now? Immediately. Security Bureau on official duty. Shut up. Kong Luan cut him off. Just a common soldier, what's there to be arrogant about? Do you believe I can make one phone call and strip you of your uniform? Let all the fans see how you treat their goddess. Neither you nor your superiors could bear the consequences. Long Zhan didn't even bother to glance at her, simply waving his hand behind him. Take them away. The soldiers behind Long Zhan moved toward Kong Luan. I'm not going. Who are you? Dare to reveal your unit. They'll make you pay. Long Zhan shot her a cold glare, causing her face to blanch as she stumbled backward, though she still blustered. Is this how a soldier behaves? They'll find your superiors. Write down the names of everyone you want to contact, and I'll call them all myself. Hearing this, Kong Luan froze, her hand hovering over her phone. Now she was truly intimidated. She had dealt with all sorts of people before, but none had ever exerted such pressure on her. Sister Kong, let's go, Michelle said. Take them to isolation for questioning. They are not to leave until the review is— Yes, sir, a soldier replied. Kong Luan thought about resisting, but when she noticed the insignia on the soldier's shoulder, she immediately fell silent. When they stepped outside, they saw guards posted every few steps, armored vehicles in the courtyard, and helicopters in the sky. Utterly stunned into silence. Sister Kong, what's happening? Kong Luan was too frightened to speak until they reached the isolation room, where she whispered cautiously, incredible. Absolutely incredible. This little Longang technical school must have produced a monumental figure. Michelle was also awed by the spectacle, bewildered as to what had occurred. As far as she knew, there was no one of importance here, nor anything warranting such a massive operation. Inside the principal's office, Xiao Wei stared at the soldiers before him, his eyes widening in shock. Though he had little exposure, it was clear these men were no ordinary individuals. Principal Xia, we wish to see Chen Yang from your school. Please cooperate, Long Zhan said. Who? Chen Yang. Xiao Wei was bewildered. What had that kid done to warrant such a response? Could there be some mistake? Chen Yang is a model student at our school. He gets along with his classmates and respects his teachers. He's never done anything out of line. Xiao Wei thought Chen Yang had gotten into trouble, so he rushed to defend him. Principal Xia, don't overthink it. We're here to invite Chen Yang to come with us, and there's absolutely no coercion involved. Long Zhan said to Xiao Wei. That's good to hear. They'll call him over for you. No need. Where is he? Well, go and invite him in person. Long Zhan replied. Hearing Long Zhan's words, Xiao Wei was utterly bewildered. Though he had little understanding of military ranks, he knew this man held a high position. So why was he being so deferential? Could Chen Yang be the descendant of some big shot? Before he could dwell on it, Long Zhan gestured for him to lead the way. Clearly, not only did Long Zhan intend to go himself, but he also wanted Xiao Wei to accompany him. Let me call and find out where he is, Xiao Wei said. He picked up the phone and made a call. A minute later, the counselor just said someone saw him at the lab building. Let's go look for him there, Xiao Wei remarked. Speaking of this, he added, that kid's a genius, excels in math and science, but his English is a complete disaster. He scored 0 on the high school entrance exam. No school would accept such grades, so he had no choice but to come here to a technical school. After he arrived, he started dating at first, but once his girlfriend left, he became obsessed with experiments. He spends all his time tinkering with all sorts of strange gadgets. No one knows what he's making. The lab building wasn't being used much anyway, so we let him do as he pleases as long as he stays safe. Hearing this, Long Zhan's face showed even more astonishment. You mean he usually conducts experiments in this lab building? Yes, he comes here whenever he's free. At first, the school provided his experimental reagents, but after he exhausted the school's budget, he started funding it himself. That kid's got real grit. I heard he even went on blind dates to earn money. He's got a stubborn persistence. It's a shame his English is so poor, otherwise he could have gotten into a junior college, then a bachelor's, and even a master's or doctorate. Xiao Wei's eyes were filled with regret. It was rare to find such a good student, and he was willing to pour everything into nurturing him. But Longang Technical School had limited resources and could offer little. We're here. This is the place, Xiao Wei said to Long Zhan. Long Zhan looked at the building before him, then pulled out his walkie-talkie. Surround this area. No one is to approach without my orders. Anyone who tries to force their way in will be shot on sight. Hearing this, Xiao Wei, standing nearby, was utterly terrified, wondering how this man could exude such lethal intent. In a building not far away, Kong Luan and Michelle, who had just finished their isolation review and were still under quarantine, saw the scene outside the lab building through the window. That lab building is heavily guarded. Could a VIP be inside? With a nervous heart, Xiao Wei led Long Zhan toward the third floor. As they entered, they saw Chen Yang tinkering with his devices, each adorned with strange buttons. When Long Zhan saw the apparatus, he looked as if had seen a ghost, his stoic face instantly morphing into shock. Xiao Wei, however, was used to it. He stepped forward to call out to Chen Yang, but Long Zhan grabbed him. Don't disturb. Guard the area. Now connect me to the strategic committee. Request a video link. Soon the connection was established. On the screen appeared several gray-haired elders. So, have you found Chen Yang? Is this controllable nuclear fusion device his work? Bai Jingli, the chairman, asked Long Zhan. Now they all waited anxiously. They had already read the paper on the theory and implementation of controllable nuclear fusion, and after reading it, they couldn't help but applaud in amazement. Reporting to the chairman, I've arrived at Longang Technical School and have seen Chen Yang. He's conducting an experiment, but I can't tell what he's doing, so I dare not interrupt rashly. An experiment? With the lab equipment at Longang Technical School, it's at most high school level. Aside from some basic theoretical verification experiments, what else could he be doing? Chairman Bai Jingli said. Long Zhan's face flickered, but he then aimed his camera at Chen Yang. His camera lens was high definition, far superior to civilian models. Soon the scene of Chen Yang conducting the experiment appeared in the lens. He really is doing an experiment, and it looks quite professional. For a technical school student to have such fundamental skills is impressive. Wait, this experimental setup. Why does it look so strange? With Bai Jingli's exclamation, the other committee members who had been seated immediately became unsettled. Tokamak. That's a tokamak device. No mistake. That's an ion accelerator, that's an ignition device. That's the reaction chamber, and that's the reactor vessel. My God, this reactor vessel is even integrated. It directly extracts protium from seawater, then through ion acceleration. Wait. That probe-like thing, is it a laser accelerator? First ion acceleration, then laser-induced high-temperature acceleration to give particles enough kinetic energy for collision preparation. This. My God, how did he manage this? Any one of these devices is a strategic-level resource. How did he get his hands on? Why are there no markings? Why does it look so crude? Could this all be DIY? Impossible. Absolutely impossible. The ions are accelerating and the laser is charging. What is he doing? Is he trying to initiate controllable nuclear fusion right here in Longang Technical School's lab? Insanity. Utter insanity. I need to go to the site. I'm going right now. Me too. I want to witness history. Count me in. You have to take me. Send a plane to pick me up. Hurry. I need to get there now or I'll miss it, exclaimed Wu Xian, an expert in atomic energy control. Hearing this, Long Zhan felt a headache coming on, but he dared not slack off in the slightest. Half an hour later, a roaring sound echoed, followed by the sight of beautiful contrails streaking across the sky. Xiaolong fighter jets. 5th generation Xiaolong fighters. My God, what am I seeing today? Xiaolong fighter escort. What's going on? Then a team of masked warriors arrived again. After disembarking, they quickly set up a perimeter, raising the security level another notch. Kong Luan and Michelle were utterly petrified at the sight. Although they had encountered various props during filming, those were all obsolete and worthless. Nothing compared to what lay before them, which was far too extraordinary to be dismissed as mere stagecraft. Before long, the crowd witnessed a Longtian fighter jet land on the campus. Subsequently, a group of white-beard elders descended from the aircraft. That's Bai Jingli, the chief engineer of the National Defense 973 project, and Wu Xian, who led the Atomic Engineering Initiative. The others are unfamiliar, but judging by their easy demeanor, they are all undisclosed titans in their fields. Good heavens! What am I witnessing here today? Can someone tell me what's happening? The students of Longang Technical School stood frozen, utterly bewildered. Even more stunned were Kong Luan and Michelle. Earlier, she had foolishly considered complaining to the leading dragon warrior. Now she realized that merely obstructing them would have justified their immediate execution. Then, under the watchful eyes of Kong Luan and Michelle, the white-beard elders all headed toward the experimental building. Who is inside? How could such a figure attract so many luminaries? Elder Bai, Elder Wu. Long Zhan saluted Bai Jingli and the experts behind him. Where is the person? Xiao Wei stood there trembling, utterly at a loss for how to react. As the humble principal of Longang Technical School, whose status was even lower than that of a high school principal, he naturally lacked the standing to speak in the presence of academicians revered as towering figures. He's currently conducting experiments inside, and I dared not disturb him. Well done. Excellent work, Bai Jingli said to Long Zhan. Then everyone peered inside. In the spacious laboratory, only Chen Yang and his experimental apparatus were visible. Though it appeared chaotic, it exuded an air of orderliness, as if everything was under the control of the young man. Upon closer inspection, the academicians were filled with astonishment. Did he build all these himself? Why have I never seen such devices before? Xiao Wei, still trembling, stepped forward to explain as Bai Jingli and the other luminaries inquired. Yes, he built everything himself. Look at that seawater extraction device. It was assembled from parts of our broken liquid phase analyzer. And that accelerated conversion unit, he crafted it by hand. He initially sought external welders, but found their work too crude. Dissatisfied, he bought a welding machine, made his own electrodes, and welded the accelerator with custom rods. During the process, he even overloaded and burned out our transformer. Xiao Wei kept explaining, leaving the listeners utterly astounded. Hearing Xiao Wei's words, everyone was stunned into silence. Just then a loud laugh rang out. Finally, the last stage is upon us. Success or failure hinges on this moment. A voice brimming with confidence and a hint of frenzy echoed from within. The academicians present fell silent, the air itself seeming to congeal. They held their breath, not daring to exhale, audibly so still that even the whisper of wind was discernible. Their eyes wide, they fixed their gaze on the scene inside. Chen Yang observed as the final reactants entered watching the lustrous liquid, a satisfied smile spread across his face. Accelerate. The reactant liquid was atomized into a mist shimmering within the transparent specialized vessel. It began to whirl with furious speed. At first, a swift airflow was visible, but as velocity increased, only a streak of light could be seen racing through. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. The process lasted a full 10 minutes. Despite the monotony, everyone watched intently, not daring to slacken their focus or make a sound. Ignite. The laser device, long prepared, flared to life. Even from a distance and against the light, the beam was blinding, more intense than the sun itself. As time passed, the beam grew stronger until finally eyes could no longer remain open. Yet it eventually stabilized. The final step. Success or failure rests on this. Release. At Chen Yang's low command, the luminous streams shot like a meteor into the laser beam. A dull thud echoed, and the entire laboratory was illuminated as if by a lightning bolt. Its brilliant. A louder roar followed, and a sphere emitted a beam as radiant as the sun. Even in daylight, the laboratory was flooded with white light, as if a sun had fallen into the room. This white radiance persisted for over 10 minutes. Afterward, Chen Yang glanced at the current meter, a satisfied smile gracing his lips. This discharge could power the school for an entire year. It's a pity it can't be stored efficiently. It'll need to develop a better power source later, Chen Yang murmured to himself. Then he raised his finger and pressed another black switch. The blazing sun dimmed as if shrouded by a dark curtain, gradually fading until it extinguished completely. Finally, success. Chen Yang let out a long breath. The 300,000 was well spent. It seems doing everything oneself is more economical. Chen Yang sighed again. These words, overheard by Bai Jingli and the others at the door, nearly made them collapse. 300,000. This controlled nuclear fusion device cost only 300,000 yuan, and it succeeded. A milestone. A true milestone. From now on, this young man has tamed the beast of nuclear fusion for humanity, just as ancient peoples tamed fire. No more energy woes. A hero emerges in youth. A hero emerges in youth. Looking at him, I feel my entire life has been wasted. Everyone was overwhelmed with emotion. Some academicians even wept with joy. Dragon Nation had led the world for millennia, but in modern times, it had nearly faced extinction. Since the founding of Dragon Nation, generations had toiled tirelessly, striving for the great revival. Now their grand objective was on the verge of fulfillment. Mastering controlled nuclear fusion would eliminate the energy crisis, complete an energy revolution, and catalyze transformative changes from military to civilian sectors, from strategic to political domains. Heaven bless Dragon Nation. Heaven bless Dragon Nation. Bai Jingli cried out in exhilaration. At this moment, the teachers and students within the school also witnessed the cataclysmic transformation inside the laboratory. Many were astonished, wondering what had transpired. No one knew, yet they understood that everything today was far from ordinary. Simultaneously, within a 30-mile radius of Longgang Technical School, all signals vanished completely and no messages could be sent out. Any posts or information speculating about the white light were suppressed, with not a single piece of news leaking through. After a long while, Bai Jingli finally recovered from his shock and excitement, then turned his gaze toward Chen Yang inside the laboratory. He slowly walked in. His entire body trembled with exhilaration, as if on a pilgrimage. "Excuse me, are you Mr. Chen Yang?" Chen Yang, still immersed in the immense joy of his experimental success, was startled by the voice behind him. Turning around, he saw a group of white-haired elders standing behind him, their eyes burning with intensity as they stared at him. Chen Yang was so frightened that he instinctively stepped back. "Who are you? Why are you in my laboratory?" Chen Yang said to them with a guarded expression. Then remembering his experimental apparatus, he reached out and detached the laser emission device. No, 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 we are good people, citizens of Dragon Nation. We are not here to steal your device, Bai Jingli hastily explained to Chen Yang. They had just witnessed the power of the laser device, a beam capable of accelerating particles to trigger nuclear fusion. If it struck a person, it would instantly vaporize everything. At that moment, Xiao Wei also stepped forward from behind Long Zhan. Chen Yang, why don't you put down your weapon? Xiao Wei said, his voice somewhat lacking in confidence. Then walking up to Chen Yang, he deliberately glared at him in feigned anger before turning to the academicians like Bai Jingli and apologizing. Please don't be angry, esteemed academicians. Chen Yang is just too tense. After all, this is his life's work. Then he said to Chen Yang, these are all nuclear physics experts from our Academy of Engineering, each a national treasure. This is academician Bai Jingli, this is academician Wu Xian, this is academician Qian Siliang. Hearing Xiao Wei's words, Chen Yang finally let down his guard, though he still spoke grumpily to the group. Now that the device is a success, why have you come? I wrote letters to each of you back then, but no one paid me any attention. What use is it for you to show up now? What? You even wrote us letters? Bai Jingli looked at Chen Yang with astonishment. Impossible. How could we have ignored such a letter? How could you possibly have taken it seriously? Your arrogance and prejudice made you trust only the papers published by developed countries in Europe and America. You wouldn't even believe the work of domestic peers, so how could you believe something written by a technical school student like me? Chen Yang said without restraint. Hearing this, the group flushed with embarrassment. What he said was not untrue. When selecting papers, they tended to focus on international research hotspots, rarely referencing domestic articles due to various factors. Mr. Chen Yang, was that a tokamak device you just built? Didn't you all see it? Chen Yang replied. The old men chuckled awkwardly. First, I must apologize for not valuing your research in time. Now we ask that you return with us to the Dragon Academy of Sciences to continue your work. No to lead this research of yours, Wu Xian said to Chen Yang. The moment these words were spoken, the already stunned group became restless. Hey, how can you claim him as part of the Institute of Atomic Energy at the Magic City Dragon Academy without even discussing it? Do you take us for decorations? You heard it. You all ignored the emails he sent you earlier. But we discovered him, and more importantly, Mr. Chen Yang is currently close to our institute. I believe Mr. Chen Yang wouldn't want to travel far to work elsewhere, risking acclimatization issues, wouldn't you agree, Mr. Chen? Wu Xian said to Chen Yang with a smile. Nonsense. Mr. Chen Yang hasn't said a word, and you're just making wild guesses here, retorted another academician, Qian Siliang. Mr. Chen Yang, rest assured, our Northeast Dragon Academy has the most comprehensive research and development system and the best experimental grounds. I guarantee we can provide you with top-tier experimental conditions without any shortcomings, Qian Siliang said to Chen Yang. Old Qian, that's not fair. While you have relatively complete experimental grounds, they are all finished product testing bases. When it comes to experimental equipment, I have the most fully equipped labs. In terms of strength, who can compete with me? Mr. Chen Yang, if you come to us, I can solve all your problems immediately. The elderly gentlemen were all vying for him. Everyone could see that whoever managed to secure this talent would effectively win the entire monumental project of controlled nuclear fusion. At that point, whether it was personnel allocation, funding, equipment configuration, or even the research institution's level, it would become the nation's top priority. And once successful, the entire research institution's status in the world would rise to unprecedented heights, possibly becoming a sacred site for atomic energy. With such a prize, who wouldn't compete? What are you all doing? Have you forgotten your age? Behaving like this? Aren't you afraid of being ridiculed? Bai Jingli scolded the old men. I know your little schemes, but in the end this is a two-way choice. It depends not only on your willingness, but also on whether Mr. Chen Yang finds you acceptable. Forcing it is absolutely out of the question, Bai Jingli said to the group. As the leading figure of this generation, Bai Jingli naturally commanded everyone's respect. Once he spoke, the elderly gentlemen refrained from further contention, their eyes burning with anticipation as they looked at Chen Yang. Feeling their gazes, Chen Yang grew somewhat uneasy. Esteemed gentlemen, thank you for your appreciation and recognition. I have read all your works. I've read Mr. Wu's articles the most, because after his papers were published abroad, he would also republish them in Chinese and domestic journals. So I've seen them most frequently. Among them, I found your research on the static energy release curve of controlled nuclear fusion quite impressive. Unfortunately, your sample size was too small, and the statistical analysis methods were somewhat unsuitable. As a result, your conclusions always deviated slightly from actual values. You could try applying the Grans-Brown statistical equation, removing the scalar, before performing quasi-variation. Hearing Chen Yang's words, Wu Xian felt as if he had been enlightened, a sudden realization dawning upon him. I've been pondering this for so long, unable to find the key, focusing all my energy on the experimental procedures, never imagining the problem lay in the statistical analysis method. Wu Xian slapped his forehead. As a physics expert, he was naturally a master of mathematics, and he was well-versed in the Grand's Brownian statistical equation. It was an ancient equation overly precise and thus generally unsuitable for such large-scale variables. Lao Wu and I share the same research direction. Have you read my work? Another senior academician by Siki looked at Chen Yang with eager anticipation. Academician by I have naturally read your research. Your theory of neutron fission has greatly influenced me. In fact, I even employed your model in this device. However, the model had a slight flaw which I have refined. If you are interested in the future, I could report to you on it. Chen Yang said with a smile. Upon hearing this, that academician, like a child receiving praise, was overwhelmed with excitement. What about mine? Have you read my paper? Yes, I have. Your paper was equally significant to me. Subsequently, all the academicians crowded around Chen Yang with questions, especially upon hearing that Chen Yang had incorporated their theories into the construction of the tokamak device. They were even more thrilled. A genius. A true genius. Esteemed teachers, my tokamak device was built upon the foundation of your research. Thus, it is the fruit of our collective efforts. Chen Yang said with utmost humility. Hearing this, the crowd grew even more agitated. Mr. Chen Yang, you must not say that. We were merely like blind men touching an elephant. It was you who pieced the puzzle together. We dare not claim the credit. Indeed, though we all study physics, each field is subdivided into many differences. Delving deeply into one area already exhausts all one's energy. For you to explore each of our fields so profoundly is a rare genius. I have a question. When your particles are heated to a high temperature state, how does your material withstand it? Bai Jingli asked. Academician, by that is an excellent question. It utilizes a multi-layered fluid state. The higher the temperature, the lower the density, until it becomes gaseous. Yet it can be recycled. Chen Yang then explained it to him. After listening, he was suddenly enlightened. Listening to you is worth more than 10 years of reading. Inspiring youth. Inspiring youth. I also have a question regarding my research topic. I encountered the same issue during my work. You can refer to. Oh, why didn't I think of that? Ingenious. This design is too ingenious. Old Bai, I don't mean to disobey orders, but if this Mr. Chen Yang doesn't come to my research institute, I'll take the case to the Ministry of Science and Technology to get my way. In your dreams. We must have Mr. Chen. Another academician who had asked a question refused to let go. Several of them began to vie for him again. If earlier they valued the benefits of Chen Yang's controlled nuclear fusion, now they had complete admiration, even reverence for his other abilities. He was a treasure, an absolute treasure. Esteemed teachers, my English is poor, very poor. I'm afraid I can't. What does poor English matter? He'll be your translator. If I'm busy, I'll hire an English translator. My granddaughter is an English major, as she's perfect. A senior academician said. The others looked at him with disdain, even offering up his granddaughter. Seeing these old gentlemen chattering endlessly around, Chen Yang growing more absurd and excited. 3 hours had already passed in a flash. Long Zhan grew anxious. Xiao Wei was utterly dumbfounded. He couldn't believe their small Longang technical school had truly produced a dragon, and a giant dragon at that. Now he felt only excitement and ecstasy. With this alone, he could get anything he wanted next year. Meanwhile, Long Zhan beside him felt somewhat dizzy. He was often with these old men and knew their tempers. Many geniuses had been scolded into doubting their own existence before them. Prodigies, geniuses, none of it worked in front of them, because they had seen the most geniuses, and they themselves were geniuses among geniuses in their youth. But now, facing this young student, they were far too reverent, treating him entirely as a peer. However, seeing the controlled nuclear fusion, he was completely relieved. Mastering this could redraw the world's power structure. It was equivalent to seizing strategic resources entirely. From then on, there would be an endless supply of energy. Gentlemen, shall we move to a more convenient place for conversation? Long Zhan said to Bai Jingli. This was just a technical school. Such a large-scale operation was too conspicuous. It was better to relocate quickly. Bai Jingli came to his senses. All right, let's go now. How about the Atomic Energy Research Institute of our Academy of Sciences? It's only about 10 kilometers away, fully equipped, and security is no concern. It's always been a key military site. 10 floors underground are permanently garrisoned by a battalion with additional guards from the Security Bureau, ensuring no issues. Wu Xian said. Hearing this, Bai Jingli naturally looked towards Chen Yang. The others looked displeased, but there was no better option. Only Qian Siliang of the Academy's Atomic Energy Research Institute was filled with excitement and delight. Chen Yang smiled. It seemed today he had no choice. This place was no longer viable. He then said, I have no objections. Whatever arrangements the teachers make are fine. Upon hearing Chen Yang's words, their faces lit up with joy again. Subsequently, Chen Yang was escorted by the group towards the Academy of Sciences. However, before leaving, he manually removed several key components. The rest of these start dismantling from here. Take all the remaining ones too. Chen Yang was troubled. Such large items had nowhere to go. At the Academy, our new Fuxing building is complete. I can immediately give you 3 floors. You can move all this equipment there now, and I guarantee that place will be your exclusive lab, untouched by any. Wu Xian said. Yes, that place is most suitable. Qian Siliang from the Shanghai Atomic Energy Research Institute chimed in agreement. Old fox. The others cursed inwardly upon hearing Wu Xian and Qian Siliang's words. Yet they had no choice, who could blame the one who got there first. After arranging everything, Chen Yang bid farewell to the principal and, escorted by the academicians, slowly walked out of the laboratory building. Meanwhile, in the quarantine building across the way, Michelle and Conlin, who had been eager to leave, were anxiously waiting. Suddenly, they saw a squad of soldiers marching out, each fully armed and on high alert. They even had the impression that these soldiers were the kind who would willingly take a bullet for the person they were protecting. He's out, finally out. All this commotion for such a big shot. I'm really curious. What kind of person could command such treatment? Conlin was burning with curiosity. Then they saw a heavy, luxurious, yet understated car pull up. Next, several men adorned with medals took up positions at the doorway, and behind them stood a group of elderly men with graying hair. They knew full well that these were recipients of the Azure Dragon Medal, men who upon death would be carried by the 3 service honor guard and draped with the dragon flag. Absolutely the pillars of the nation. Oh my God, who's that handsome guy among those old gentlemen? He's so good-looking, and with so many bigwigs surrounding him and so many soldiers guarding him, he's like a true son of destiny. Conlin gushed to Michelle with a fangirl expression. Do you know this handsome guy? If you could date someone like him, or even just spark some rumors, it would be a huge boost to your career. Conlin couldn't help but say. It wasn't that celebrities couldn't date, it was all about who they dated. If it were someone like this, it would certainly enhance her career, maybe even catapult her to the top tier overnight. After all, everyone harbors a heroic sentiment. Michelle stared at the man surrounded by the crowd, her eyes filled with shock. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. How could he be? Michelle couldn't believe what she was seeing. The man who had once made her feel happy, the nightmare she had desperately tried to escape. How could he now be? Conlin noticed Michelle's distress, paused in surprise, and then exclaimed in shock. Michelle, is that the Chen Yang who used to pester you relentlessly and bragged about making a world-shaking invention? Michelle's eyes glazed over, and she nearly collapsed to the ground at a loss. Her reaction was an admit. Conlin was also stunned. My dear, if he had such power, why didn't you say so earlier? Have you sent the breakup? Did the ones you mailed earlier reach him? If not, withdraw them immediately. Conlin asked Michelle. Michelle looked as if her very spirit had been drained. Too late. He's already blocked me. Michelle clearly remembered that she had sent him messages repeatedly telling him to stop bothering her. And he had gone from initial heartbreak to calm acceptance. There's still a chance. Maybe we still have a chance, Michelle. But just as she was about to step forward, she saw the principal hand Chen Yang the card she had given him earlier. Seeing that card being handed over, Michelle, standing above, was filled with regret. She had once wished so desperately to sever ties with him, but now. Then she saw Chen Yang take the card and hand it back to Principal Xiao Wei before getting into the car and driving away. He hadn't even glanced in her direction the entire time. Michelle felt utterly ridiculous. What a pity, such a pity. If only. Conlin muttered beside her. Shut up. Michelle snapped at Conlin. Why are you taking it out on me? It's your own fault for not holding on to him. Do you blame me? Conlin retorted without backing down. Tears streamed down Michelle's face. In the car, Chen Yang gazed out the window, his mind at peace. Through the glass, he had already seen Michelle. In fact, he had known the moment she arrived. The entire school knew she had sent him letters repeatedly demanding to break up. He had come this time only to let go completely. After all this time, giving him that card was merely an attempt to buy his silence. After all, no celebrity could bear the stigma of being a female chinchimmy. A popular actress. Humph. A whore has no heart, an actor no loyalty. Chen Yang, I just heard from the principal that you don't have a girlfriend. Let me tell you, my granddaughter is a senior now and single. If you don't mind. Old Wu, give it a rest. Look in the mirror. Do you think you have any right to introduce someone to Chen Yang? Another academician unceremoniously cut him off. I have a few decent students. Why don't you come to my place and I'll set you up? Another academician chimed in. Chen Yang was speechless. These revered masters, usually so dignified, turned out to have such gossipy sides. The security forces withdrew from Longang Technical School, leaving the teachers and students with endless speculation. No one knew what they were really there for. I heard the lab building was heavily guarded today, and Chen Yang uses it the most. And that dazzling light came from inside the lab. What do you think? Damn, don't tell me he actually pulled it off. It's possible. After all, he once made his girlfriend a popular actress. Hey, I heard that actress came specifically to break up with him today, and right after the breakup, he's whisked away with such a grand escort. That's just surreal. Badass. That actress must be regretting it now. What's there to regret? Selling tea eggs beats making atomic bombs. Who knows if she's really regretting it? A celebrity makes hundreds of millions a year. A single TV drama costs hundreds of millions. What do researchers have? They toil away for peanuts. It's too early to say. We'll know who's really impressive at the 30th anniversary celebration next year. I heard the school has decided to invite Michelle as a VIP guest. Then Chen Yang will probably fall behind. Even if a tech school student manages to sneak into those research institutions with master's degree holders as common as dogs and PhDs everywhere, a tech school grad probably can't even qualify as an assistant. They're only taking him now because he has some use. Once that's exhausted, he'll be worthless. Then it's back to square one. And given Michelle's current growth rate, she'll probably be a top domestic star by then. Coming back to our school would be a triumphant return. How could he compete with that? The others nodded in agreement. No one believed a tech school student could go far in research. Michelle, on the other hand, had a bright future in the entertainment industry. Chen Yang was brought by those people to the Institute of Atomic Energy of the Dragon Academy of Sciences. The Dragon Academy was now completely sealed off with its security level instantly raised to the highest. However, for those inside, it didn't make much of a difference. After the isolation review, they resumed their own tasks, as such situations were not unprecedented. Their work was closely tied to military industries, so they often faced such circumstances. Ma Yuhua and the others finished their isolation review and provided a detailed explanation of the origins of the controlled nuclear fusion materials. Through technical means, they even retrieved the emails that had been discarded into the trash. Ma Yuhua and Yang Shui were both utterly astonished. How could it be? Did the big shots at the Dragon Academy actually believe that those materials could lead to controlled nuclear fusion? Ridiculous. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. A vocational school student who merely browsed some stuff on Baidu dares to claim he understands nuclear fusion better than an academician. How could we accept this? Both were indignant and found it utterly laughable. Many others shared their sentiment. Everyone was waiting for the security level to be lifted. Yet hours later, instead of being lifted, the security level had been raised even higher. It was clearly visible that the soldiers outside were being rotated and the new ones taking their positions exuded a much more formidable and terrifying aura. My God, what is this all about? It's just a vocational school student. Ma Yuhua couldn't help but complain upon. Just then her phone rang. Mom, I can't come back now. This is all you're doing, forcing me to go on that blind date. What? The person on the blind date was someone you hired. Hearing this, Ma Yuhua felt on the verge of collapse. I did it for your own good. Only by comparison can you see the difference. I just wanted to show you that if you keep refusing to date, you'll end up with someone as clueless as a vocational school student. Doesn't that give you a sense of urgency? Her mother's smug voice came through the phone. Ma Yuhua felt her mind reeling. Yes, I feel the urgency now. She hung up her thoughts in disarray. Just then, through the window, she saw a convoy of armored vehicles pulling in. Soldiers armed to the teeth disembarked from the vehicles. In peacetime, was such a security measure necessary? Ma Yuhua couldn't help but grumble inwardly. Then she fell silent. She saw behind the armored vehicles a car from which emerged a group of elderly men with graying beards. My God, what's happening today? Is it a festival? Why are all the luminaries of atomic energy here? Ma Yuhua exclaimed in astonishment. Bai Jingli Qian Siliang Wuxian. Each name was legendary, every one of them a national treasure and a figure of strategic importance. And now they were all gathered here. They were the disciples and descendants of these masters. The textbooks they studied and the research projects they undertook were all creations of these very people. Seeing even one of them was like encountering a deity, and now they were all present. No wonder the security, my God, it's an absolute dream team. Yuhua, look. Oh my. A splash of red among the green. Beside those venerable elders, there's a strikingly handsome young man. My God. Is he also a master? Look how respectfully those great masters treat him. These are people who look down on everyone. How can they hold him in such high regard? Yang Shui's eyes were wide with amazement, a love-struck expression on her face as she covered her mouth, hardly believing her eyes. Ma Yuhua beside her stood frozen in place. Isn't this the boy I went on a blind date with? What? This is the oddball you mentioned. The vocational school student who supposedly achieved controlled nuclear fusion. Yang Shui asked in shock. Yes, it's him. How? How is he? Ma Yuhua's words trailed off, her eyes filled with shock, as if she had seen a ghost. At the same time, Yang Shui also came to a realization and turned to look at Ma Yuhua. Could it be? Has he really achieved controlled nuclear fusion? They both said in unison. My God, this is insane. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. They vehemently denied it. It was too fantastical, too unbelievable. A vocational school student had solved a problem that the world's top scientists couldn't overcome. But after calming down for 3 minutes, they finally faced reality. I think it might be true. He really has achieved controlled nuclear fusion, and the materials he sent are genuine, even verified by these great masters. Yang Shui, though reluctant to believe, had to admit that only this possibility could explain all that was happening. She quickly rushed to search for those emails. Soon she found the message in the spam folder. She had never glanced at it before, but now she opened it and carefully read the first 3 paragraphs. What have I missed? This is a stroke of genius. Why didn't I have the patience to read it back then? I only saw the words vocational school student. It's all my fault. Entirely my fault. Yang Shui was consumed by self-blame. But just as she was engrossed in reading and about to applaud in admiration, a sharp sound suddenly blared from the computer. Beep, beep, beep. A frantic alarm sounded, and then a line of text appeared on the screen. This email has been classified as top secret. Without proper authorization, access is denied. At the same time, the laboratory door opened and 2 security officers entered. Miss Yang Shui, you are suspected of viewing state secrets. Please come with us for investigation. I didn't mean to. That email was one I deleted before, and I thought. You can explain in detail once we return, the security officer said. Yang Shui's face turned grim. She never imagined that merely recovering a lost email would lead to her being investigated. Yet now she was even more certain that all of this was triggered by the paper on controlled nuclear fusion sent by that vocational school student. As she was being watched by the security officers, footsteps echoed again outside. Then a crowd surrounded Chen Yang as they entered from outside. Among those meritorious figures destined for the annals of history, there was a young man, even younger than her now, encircled like a star, surrounded by the moon. All those materials were given to me by him. I haven't disseminated them or lost them. He can vouch for me. Ma Yuhua quickly pointed at Chen Yang and said, otherwise Yang Shui would have been taken away. At this moment, Ma Yuhua was utterly embarrassed. Just moments ago during the blind date, she had mocked him mercilessly, and now, humph. Spitting against the wind only brings disgrace upon oneself. It was a humiliation that reached the depths of her being. Hearing Ma Rong's words, the soldier turned to look at Long Zhan. Long Zhan then glanced at Chen Yang beside him. Chen Yang, bear witness for me. Did you send this to me or not? Have I never touched it? Chen Yang walked over to take a look. Indeed, this is the one I sent to her, Chen Yang said. Hearing this, Ma Rong and Yang Shui both breathed a long sigh of relief. They wouldn't have to undergo isolation review. Indeed, it's never been opened. It still shows as unread. Chen Yang remarked, looking at the email, unable to resist teasing. Ma Rong and Yang Shui flushed crimson, but had no retort. Sure enough, the soldier withdrew. However, academician Wu Xian, who had just entered from outside, could no longer remain composed. Gazing at Yang Shui, he couldn't help but seethe. I entrusted my account to you to help me filter emails properly, and what have you done? You actually threw such an important email into the trash, burying a talent like Chen Yang until now. I don't even know what to say to you. Yang Shui trembled all over, daring not to offer a single word of rebuttal. Previously, she had only handled meeting invitations and other document submissions for academician Wu Xian, merely doing preliminary screening. But who could have imagined there would be an oddity like Chen Yang, who sent something so crucial via such an email method? Forget it, this can't be blamed on her, Chen Yang said calmly. Hearing this, Wu Xian let the matter drop and continued, Mr. Chen Yang, from now on we're one family. I've selected a laboratory for you. They'll take you to see it shortly. Also, I know you'll need assistance. My lab staff are all here. Pick anyone you want. I guarantee I won't stand in the way. Hearing Wu Xian's words, a smile spread across Chen Yang's face. Professor Wu, you're too kind. Just call me Xiao Chun. How could I? In academia, precedence is always given to the accomplished. You've cracked controlled nuclear fusion. You are our teacher. How dare I call you Xiao Chun? All right, I'll call you Chen Yang from now on, and you can call me Old Wu, Wu Xian said with a smile. Chen Yang smiled and nodded in tacit agreement. Everyone in the lab was utterly stunned. What? This young man, seemingly younger than them, had actually achieved controlled nuclear fusion. Was this some kind of joke? Were they writing a sci-fi novel? Although the principle of controlled nuclear fusion is simple, the challenges to actualize it are immense. The billion-degree heat alone was enough to make it seem impossible. And now he had broken through it. Speaking of experiments, it seemed he indeed lacked manpower. Is anyone willing to join me in research? Chen Yang asked the assembled crowd. Conducting experiments alone sometimes left him stretched thin. He had worried about insufficient help, but in the blink of an eye, Wu Xian had solved the problem. Is it really about controlled nuclear fusion? A person in a white lab coat asked Chen Yang. Of course it's true, Wu Xian said. I'm in. I want to join this project. Count me in too. I want to participate. I also want to contribute to the nation's new energy revolution. For a moment, the entire office erupted in excitement. This was a project that could change history. Who wouldn't want to be part of it? It seems everyone is very enthusiastic. Wu Xian said with a smile. But then he seemed to recall something. I'm afraid it won't work. These people all have their own research topics. If they all follow you, their advisors' projects would be neglected. Wu Xian explained. Each advisor had recruited their own graduate students to assist with their work. If the students ran off to Chen Yang, the other advisors would have no one to do their tasks. If the projects aren't completed, those advisors won't be able to meet their obligations and could be forced out by the university. How about I assign my students to you? In a few months, you can recruit your own. What do you think? How could that be? You have many projects of your own. If they all come to help me, won't your projects suffer? Chen, it's fine. My projects have plenty of time left. Besides, how could they compare to yours? Wu Xian insisted. But no matter what Wu Xian said, Chen Yang remained firm in his refusal. He couldn't bring himself to do such a thing. Seeing Chen Yang's persistence, Wu Xian had to think of another approach. Chen Yang, what kind of students do you want? Obedient and capable of doing the work, Chen Yang replied with a smile. What about interns? Would you mind? Wu Xian asked with an awkward smile. Sure, as long as they can work, Chen Yang said. Hearing the word interns, the onlookers couldn't help but feel envious. Born at the wrong time. Born at the wrong time. The so-called interns were students transferred from other schools. Though decent in their own institutions, they were far inferior to the legitimate hand-picked students here. These interns were merely here to gild their resumes before returning. Moreover, they were all undergraduates. For an undergraduate to participate in such a project would be an immense boost to their future academic career. Soon a few people stood before Wu Xian and Chen Yang. How about these students? Wu Xian said to Chen. Seeing those students, the crowd's envy deepened. All right, fine. These three will do, Chen Yang nodded. Song Ji Panjun, Zhou Hui. Listen up, you three. From now on, he is your teacher. Study hard under him. Wu Xian instructed the trio. The three glanced at Chen Yang, disbelief written all over their faces. A mentor? This guy? He probably wasn't even as old as them. This mentor is extraordinary. Follow him diligently, and you will achieve great results, growing into pillars of the nation. Wu Xian said to the three. What? Pillars of the nation? They couldn't help but laugh bitterly. They were already worried about graduating. How could they become pillars of the nation? Besides, this teacher in front of them was extraordinary. He looked younger than them, didn't he? Though doubts lingered in their minds, they dared not speak up. Old Wu's recommendation was a tremendous honor. How could they refuse? Dare to object? They'd have to be tired of living. Teacher Chen, is there anything else you need assistance with, eh? Songji couldn't help but ask. Not for now. Chen Yang shook his head. When can we start working? Panjun followed up. Anytime, Chen Yang said with the three interns. Oh, by the way, Chen Yang, you mentioned before that your English wasn't good, right? I happen to have the perfect person to serve as your Wu Xian said. As he spoke, a fair-skinned girl with a lively gaze, wearing denim shorts and a ponytail, entered carrying a small backpack. The lab immediately stirred at the sight of the young beauty. Unfortunately, she remained oblivious to her surroundings, instead whining to Wu Xian. Grandpa, others complain about their parents, but you're dragging your granddaughter down. I want to conduct experiments, witness great inventions, and work alongside brilliant scientists like you. Yet you want me to follow this young lad around. What's that about? Young lad, you have no idea of his capabilities. Teacher Chen is an extraordinary scientist, Wu Xian said. I don't believe it. I refuse to believe a technical school graduate is a great scientist. He can't even speak English. How did he conduct experiments before? He can't even read the references. Wu Jing pouted, swinging her ponytail as she spoke to Wu Xian. Teacher Chen is different. He's a genius. Work with him for a while and you'll understand. Wu Xian said. Wu Jingjing realized she had fallen into a trap. No matter what she did, she couldn't escape, so she resigned herself to her fate. Subsequently, Chen Yang led the three students, all older than himself, along with Wu Jingjing, into the laboratory. It was in truth merely an empty room. Entering the newly arranged lab. Grandpa is too much. The lab is completely bare, not even a decent workbench. Is he bullying you because you're new? Wu Jingjing complained discontentedly. Despite her doubts about Chen Yang, now that she was part of the team, she naturally considered its interests. You misunderstand, old Wu, it was my request, Chen Yang said. His experiments required many custom-built components, so the setup differed entirely from other labs, leaving large open spaces. Hearing Chen Yang's words, the others looked at him in bewilderment. How can we do research without lab equipment? Wu Jingjing asked the trio. No idea. Never seen anything like this, Zhou Hui and the others replied, equally perplexed. As they spoke, crates began arriving from outside. Upon seeing the leader, they fell silent. Even Wu Jingjing restrained herself. Teacher Chen, if everything is in order, please sign here. Long Zhan approached Chen Yang respectfully with documents. Chen Yang inspected the items, all present and intact. No issues, thank you, he said, signing his name. You're too kind, it's my duty. Call me if you need anything. Long Zhan said, then saluted Chen Yang and left. Watching his retreating figure, the others breathed a sigh. Zhou Hui and the other two were intimidated by Long Zhan's imposing presence, while Wu Jingjing had personally suffered at his hands and had clearly been disciplined. That was why she was afraid. After Long Zhan left, Wu Jingjing approached Chen Yang and couldn't help praising. Not bad. You actually managed to handle that cold-faced demon. Chen Yang smiled but did not respond. Give me a hand setting this up, he said to the others. Soon the equipment. Hey, this is really interesting. It looks like a patchwork of salvaged parts, yet when combined it has a unique harmony, Wu Jingjing remarked in amazement. Zhou Hui chimed in agreement. Teacher Chen, where did you buy this experimental equipment? Zhou Hui and the others asked with curious smiles. I made it myself. Teacher Chen, we're at the Institute of Atomic Energy under the Dragon Science Academy, a nationally prioritized facility. If anyone deserves the best, it's us. What do you need? Just buy it. Old Wu recruited you. Surely had allocate funds. Wu Jingjing said to Chen Yang. This can't be bought. What kind of equipment can't be bought? Zhou Hui said skeptically. A tokamak device. The air suddenly froze, then the lab erupted in laughter. Teacher Chen, your sudden joke caught us off guard. The other two couldn't stop laughing, especially seeing Chen Yang's earnest expression, which made it even more absurd. Chen Yang chuckled along, but didn't pause his work. Teacher Chen stopped joking. A tokamak device is a massive project involving hundreds of people and investments in the tens of billions. This little thing. Teacher Chen, I find your deadpan humor particularly adorable. The laughter continued. But after a while, seeing Chen Yang unfazed and continuing to tinker with the equipment, they couldn't help but freeze. Teacher Chen, you're not serious, are you? Wu Jingjing looked over as well. Chen Yang smiled enigmatically and kept working on his devices. Seeing this, they exchanged bewildered glances. Then looking at the equipment, impossible. Absolutely impossible. What can this stuff do? A tokamak device. Controlled nuclear fusion. Are you kidding? It completely defied their understanding. 20 minutes later, Chen Yang finished calibrating the setup. Beside it stood a massive capacitor bank. Chen Yang smiled at them, then to their utter astonishment, a dull thud echoed, followed by a brilliant flash of white light that pierced the entire lab, immersing it in radiance. Their mouths gaped into perfect OS large enough to hold an apple. The experiment concluded. The gauge showed that 1 liter of seawater as raw material had released 10 million kilojoules of energy, equivalent to 300 liters of gasoline. Chen Yang was reasonably satisfied. At the sight of the data, everyone was dumbfounded. Gulping, Wu Jingjing swallowed hard, her eyes filled with shock. Having grown up immersed in her grandfather's obsession with controlled nuclear fusion. Though not a nuclear physics major, she knew the terminology and current state of the field, as well as any specialist, and understood the significance of this monumental device. Many had devoted their entire lives to taming this dragon. Now, this seemingly frail youth had slept. A long time passed before they snapped out of their shock, staring at Chen Yang as if he were a deity. What did you just do? Wu Jingjing was the first to recover from the shock, being the most naive among the four. Though she had long heard of the famed little sun, her understanding of it was superficial, knowing only its power and complexity. The tokamak device, didn't I just say that? Chen Yang said with a smile. Thud. The textbook slipped from Zhou Hu's hands, his face turning pale. You actually created this nuclear fusion. Is it really that hard? If I had the funds, I'd have done it, Chen Yang said nonchalantly. Then, ignoring their expressions, he strode toward the exit. Wu Jingjing quickly caught up. Back to the dorm, it's off-duty hours now, Chen Yang replied. He felt a change in the system within his mind and wanted to investigate it back in his room. Besides, the device was complete, so there was no need to linger here. Wu Jingjing watched him leave and hurried after him, eager to ask the boy younger than herself countless questions, but Chen Yang turned her down. Soon, academician Wu Xianxiliang and Yuan Dawei from the Institute of Atomic Energy of the Dragon Academy came rushing in from outside. What happened? We just detected a sudden massive energy fluctuation, Wu Xian asked the group. Zhou Hui and the other two were still reeling from the shock of the nuclear fusion. It was Teacher Chen. He conducted another nuclear fusion, causing the energy fluctuation, Wu Jingjing explained, steadying her own astonishment. Hearing this, the group relaxed. Then they involuntarily turned their gaze to the tokamak device. How on earth did that kid manage it? With such complex calculations and countless steps, how could he? Xianxiliang couldn't help but marvel. He had also been involved in the tokamak project and knew its difficulties well. Despite their large team's collaborative efforts, many problems remained unsolved. Yet this kid. Perhaps this is what a genius looks like. Wu Xian said with mixed emotions. Fortunately, he is a dragon citizen. Heaven bless us, Yuan Dawei added. The others nodded in agreement. They had all made immense contributions to Dragon's development, dedicating their lives not to fame or fortune, but to making Dragon stronger. Now, seeing such an exceptional successor, they were naturally overjoyed. Where is he now? Wu Xian asked again. He said he was tired and going back to the school dormitory, Wu Jingjing said. Why didn't you stop him? I've already arranged an apartment for him right next door. Wu Xian shouted. You never told me, Wu Jingjing replied aggrieved. However, Wu Xian soon learned from Long Zhan that Chen Yang had already been moved to new accommodations. Hearing this, Wu Xian finally felt at ease. With such a rare genius in their midst, no mishap could be allowed. Let's go. We need to discuss how to report this to the higher-ups. The Aerospace Institute has been stealing the spotlight lately. Maybe we can turn the tables this time, Xianxiliang said. The others' eyes lit up at the suggestion, and they headed back to the conference room. 2 hours later, they emerged with an assistant carrying a new proposal. A proposal for building a large-scale controlled nuclear fusion reactor, clearly intended for the highest authorities. I wonder if we can secure this project, someone said, their voice tinged with anxiety. We've been stuck in the lab phase all this time. Jumping straight from medium-scale experiments to full implementation. Isn't that too hasty? Yuan Dawei voiced his concern. As the director of the Institute of Atomic Energy, he felt like little more than an errand boy in the presence of these academic titans. While it's procedurally rushed, these are exceptional circumstances. With rising international tensions, we urgently need to demonstrate our strength. 10 billion may seem steep, but if we can complete this project, the returns will be immense. A venture with enormous profit potential. Wu Xian said, frowning. All right, since we're all agreed, let's submit the proposal. Tell Long Zhan to protect him at all costs. Even if he takes a bullet himself, that kid must be kept safe. Wu Xian said, then turned to his granddaughter Wu Jingjing. So did I find you a genius? This was more than a genius. It was utterly staggering. Especially the moment that white light flared, she felt as if that boy had created a sun out of thin air. Yet despite her awe, she pouted and said with restraint, he's not a genius, he's a freak. Geniuses always have their quirks. Wu Xian said with a smile. From now on, you must fully support his work. If he needs anything, step up. Are you trying to set me up? My silly girl, I'm not setting you up. I'm giving you an opportunity. Seize it well. Unaware of all this, Chen Yang had already returned to the apartment building. He had just entered the dormitory Wu Xian had arranged for him. Though called a dorm, it was a two-bedroom, one living room apartment fully furnished with appliances. Not luxurious, but clean, cozy, and almost like home. Chen Yang lay down on the bed and slowly closed his eyes. In his mind, an interface appeared, the myriad worlds technology system. Once unfamiliar, he had grown accustomed to this system. It was less a system and more a space. A bright empty room filled with system information. Congratulations, host, for completing the controlled nuclear fusion task. You have earned 1,000 technology points. Received 110 of the Star Shuttle blueprint. Awarded 1 hour of access to the future library. Technology points can be used to trade with the system for technologies, theories, materials, finished products, etc. With these points, a trading page appeared in the system. The page displayed various items: cosmic perpetual motion machine, interstellar detonation, wave, quantum channel, elixir of immortality, X material. But seeing their prices, Chen Yang felt dazed. The cheapest item, the Star Shuttle, cost 1 billion technology point. Creating controlled nuclear fusion only earned 1,000 points. What could possibly yield 1 billion? What exactly is this future library? Chen Yang's eyes were filled with confusion. The future library is a model of universal civilization development constructed by simulating technological evolution paths. It contains all the achievements of civilizations from birth to extinction, and the approximate years in which those achievements might appear. Upon seeing this explanation, Chen Yang felt somewhat perplexed. Could it be that Earth, even before reaching that era, had already managed to simulate the corresponding developmental pathways? Then, with a flicker of his consciousness, Chen Yang found himself in a peculiar space, the library of the future. Within this space, there were no books as he had imagined. Instead, there were clusters of luminous orbs. These are energy points that can be directly transmitted into the human brain. They can implant knowledge directly into your mind, establishing corresponding neural pathways to form your own understanding. Hearing the system's explanation, Chen Yang marveled at the sheer wonder of it all. There was no need for traditional learning. He could simply absorb these things directly into his mind. Subsequently, Chen Yang began to browse through the various items. Cancer treatment technology, 3012. Interstellar spacecraft, 2617. Lightspeed curvature spacecraft, 4129. Proton collision electromagnetic cannon, 2633. As he perused these marvels, Chen Yang's eyes gleamed with exhilaration. Beyond books and technologies, there were also elements of art and literature. What astonished him most was the future communication system. A tiny sensor worn on the body, enabling human-computer interaction that transmitted sound, images, and even sensations directly through electromagnetic waves and human perception. When he opened his eyes again, they were filled with awe. He never imagined future technology could reach such heights. Pity these things are so far from me now. I'd better take it step by step. Chen Yang beheld these sights. As he opened his eyes once more, his gaze grew clearer. For beyond witnessing the power of technology, he had also glimpsed through the library the perils lurking across the cosmos. Countless civilizations had perished before they even had the chance to mature. These dangers would accompany the growth and advancement of technology every step of the way. From 2100 to 2490, nearly 400 years, Blue Star's technological progress was virtually nil, and the subsequent achievements remained gray and uncertain. Could this be a hint at Blue Star's fate? Chen Yang's thoughts were in turmoil. Forget it, I won't dwell on this. It's only the 21st century now. At 2100 is still far off. Why worry about all this? Chen Yang comforted himself. At the same time, the system's voice echoed in his mind once more. System mission: construct a miniature arc reactor. Time limit 3 months. Materials self-procured. Support one set of feasible solutions based on current technology. Reward upon success to be determined. Failure, mission terminated. Does the host accept? Build a miniature arc reactor in 3 months. Having just completed controlled nuclear fusion, now another miniature arc reactor. Weren't these two essentially the same? Chen Yang pondered. I've got nothing better to do anyway. Accept, Chen Yang said. A chime followed, mission accepted. Then a point of light appeared in the space of his mind. Subsequently, a plan materialized in his mind, a feasible solution for the miniature arc reactor. After reviewing it, Chen Yang felt a throbbing headache. A genuine piercing headache. That point of light was far more advanced than the orbs in the library of the myriad realms. Upon his touch, it took root in his mind, sprouting and growing. He could clearly feel his neural pathways being reshaped, an unpleasant sensation as if furrows were being plowed into his brain. By evening, when Chen Yang emerged from his room, his clothes were soaked with sweat, his bedding was drenched, his body was utterly exhausted, and his stomach gnawed with hunger, as if he hadn't eaten for days. What's wrong with you? Wu Jingjing, out for her evening run, happened to see him leaving his house, and couldn't help asking. I am fine. Thud. Chen Yang collapsed to the ground. Seeing this, Wu Jingjing was terrified. Chen Yang, what's the matter? There was no response. Help! Someone help! At her cry, 2 soldiers suddenly appeared. After assessing Chen Yang's condition, they carried him on their backs and rushed to the nearby hospital. 2 hours later, Wu Xian Siliang Yuan Dawei by Jingli Longzhan and others stood outside the ward, their faces etched with anxiety. When the doctor emerged, they quickly surrounded him. Old Su, how's the patient? Why did he suddenly collapse? Has he woken up? Is it serious? Did he have any pre-existing conditions? They bombarded Director Su Peng with questions. Who is this young man inside that has you old fellows so worked up? Su Peng asked with a smile. He's the spiritual pillar for us oldtimers. And the future pillar of our dragon nation, Wu Xian added. Right, he must not come to any harm. Bai Jingli echoed the sentiment. Su Peng's smile faded. If you care so much, why wait until he's in this state to bring him here, he said somewhat angrily. His words left the group exchanging awkward glances, unsure how to respond. Seeing their confusion, Director Su explained with irritation, the patient is not seriously ill, just fainted from low blood sugar. And clearly it looks like he hasn't eaten for 2 or 3 days. Since you care so much, how did you not know he hadn't eaten? Wu Xian's expression darkened as he turned to Longzhan, who stood nearby. Longzhan, explain this, he demanded. It's my fault. I failed to protect him. Longzhan said, his face filled with self-reproach and guilt. The group entered the room. Lying in bed, Chen Yang saw the crowd and couldn't help but smile. What's with the... I'm sorry for not protecting you, Longzhan said, standing there with remorse. It's not your fault. I was just too absorbed in my thoughts and forgot to eat. Chen Yang replied. Are you sure you're not feeling anything else? Maybe you should get a thorough checkup, Wu Jingjing said. She had talked with Chen Yang extensively earlier that day and knew he hadn't gone days without eating, as Director Su claimed. No need, I'm really fine. Ordinarily, it wouldn't be a problem. But today I was so deeply engrossed in thought that the energy drain was immense, Chen Yang said with an embarrassed smile. You can exhaust yourself just by thinking. Wu Jingjing was both amused and baffled. Thinking about ordinary things is fine, but the calculations I was doing were massive. I didn't want to stop midway, so I pushed myself past my limits, Chen Yang explained with a grin. You're something else, Wu Jingjing said, giving him a thumbs up. Chen Yang, our controlled nuclear fusion project has been approved, codenamed Black Dragon. You're the technical advisor for this project. It's expected to take about 5 years. The next 5 years will be tough on you, Qian Siliang said, handing a document to Chen Yang. Hearing this, Chen Yang, who had been lying down, shot up in shock. No, absolutely not. I disagree. Qian Siliang and Wu Xian, along with others, had already submitted the controllable nuclear fusion project to the higher authorities. To their delight, the project received their attention and was approved in the shortest possible time. This was of course attributed to Peng Tianfang's coordination. In fact, much of the feasibility work had already been demonstrated by the time Peng obtained Chen Yang's proposal. Now that it was resubmitted, the review experts were asked to conduct a final assessment and file it with other departments for project initiation. More importantly, these experts had all witnessed the small-scale model of nuclear fusion that Chen Yang had built. It was as clear as a demonstration to them. What could be more convincing than that? Now that the project was approved, there was no doubt that Chen Yang would be involved, and as the leading figure. They had expected Chen Yang to accept gladly, but now he was actually going to refuse. Chen Yang, rest assured, although you are only an advisor for this project, we engineers will prioritize your opinions or even let you take full charge. As for the title of chief engineer, once the time is ripe in a year or 2, we will naturally return it to you, said. He thought Chen Yang was dissatisfied with his position, so he quickly added. Upon hearing academician Qian's words, Wu Jingjing, standing nearby, was utterly shocked. Entrusting such an important project to a young man under 20 was probably unprecedented in the world. Wu Jingjing also stepped forward and urged Chen Yang. If you have any other requests, you can raise them now. I think Elder Qian and the others will try their best to satisfy you. My refusal is not because I insist on the title of chief engineer, but because I don't have that much time. I still want to pursue other research. Chen Yang said truthfully. Moreover, I am still just a vocational school student unable to command respect. He had intended to continue his studies, and his original goal was to gain exemption through this. Upon hearing Chen Yang's words, Qian Siliang Wu Xian and Wu Jingjing were all stunned, not knowing how to respond. After a long pause, Yuan Dawei finally spoke. Teacher Chen, we have unanimously assessed that your level has reached that of a professor. Furthermore, your controllable nuclear fusion technology has made a tremendous contribution to the implementation of the nation's major strategies, achieving a leapfrog advancement. In my opinion, we can exceptionally appoint you as a professor. Would you be willing to accept? If you have no objections, I will begin processing the necessary procedures as soon as I return. As for commanding respect, in scientific research, competence comes first. You have achieved controllable nuclear fusion, and everyone recognizes you. Hearing Yuan Dawei's words, Chen Yang was momentarily taken aback. A professor at the Academy of Sciences? This is far more valuable than a college diploma. If I, a vocational school student, am given the title of professor, won't other teachers have objections? Chen Yang said with a smile. Absolutely not. Besides, if anyone has objections, as long as they can achieve a major national strategic technology, like controllable nuclear fusion, I will also apply for a professorship for them. If they lack that ability, they'd better keep quiet, Yuan Dawei said. Hearing this, Chen Yang felt reassured. But still no, Chen Yang shook his head again. Why, I want to free up time for other research. What research could be more important and contribute more to the nation than controllable nuclear fusion? Qian Siliang asked Chen Yang in confusion. A miniature arc reactor, Chen Yang replied. Everyone was stunned upon hearing this. Wu Jingjing, an anime fan, brightened and looked at Chen Yang with a strange expression. What did you say you want to build? A miniature arc reactor. Are you talking about the arc reactor from Marvel? Yes, that one, Chen Yang nodded. What miniature arc reactor from? I don't understand, Qian Siliang and the others asked curiously. Wu Jingjing turned to them and said, have you heard of Iron Man? The Marvel hero who wears an armored suit and rivals the gods. Iron Man, the scientist from Stark, Qian Siliang asked. Yes, exactly him, Wu Jingjing said to them. It seems you aren't too out of touch. Wu Jingjing laughed. I didn't know at first, I only learned about it when my grandson insisted on having an Iron Man. Wu Jingjing took out her phone, opened a webpage, searched for Iron Man, and pointed at the glowing ring on his chest. This is the miniature arc reactor from the movie. After looking at the phone, Qian Siliang Wu Xian and Yuan Dawei all shook their heads. This is just science fiction. In reality, such a small arc reactor is impossible, let alone wearing it on one's body. No method can solve the issues. I can solve it. Chen Yang's voice directly interrupted Wu Xian. Everyone laughed, then turned to Chen Yang again. Chen Yang, we know you have great talent and expertise in nuclear fusion, but this arc reactor clearly violates the laws of physics. It's impossible, just like no one can create a perpetual motion machine because it defies scientific principles. So-called scientific principles are merely the current framework of science. But human understanding and development of science are just the tip of the iceberg. And while such a device may not be exactly like in the movies, it is not impossible to build, Chen Yang said. Hearing Chen Yang's words, especially about scientific principles, everyone's minds were shaken. Isn't science progressing through constant breakthroughs and subversions? How long do you need? Wu Xian asked Chen Yang. Half a year. If materials are sufficient, half a year is enough to build that arc reactor, Chen Yang said with full confidence. What? Half a year? Mr. Chen, a person like you is a pillar of the nation. In half a year, you could create many miracles for the country. Could you perhaps choose some scientific research that others have already proven feasible to tackle? After all, no one has worked on this miniature arc reactor before, and the risk is considerable, Wu Xian said. He trusted Chen Yang's ability, but he also believed in the scientific methodology developed over the years. A person couldn't break through an elusive major scientific project in half a year. Hearing Wu Xian's words, Chen Yang smiled. Elder Wu, rest assured I will not waste my time. I guarantee that when this device is built, it will astonish you. In terms of strategic significance, it will be no less, if not greater, than controllable nuclear fusion, Chen Yang said confidently. Seeing that Chen Yang was still unwilling to give up, Yuan Dawei said, Teacher Chen, we know you are a genius, but you must understand that a person's energy is limited. Science is also a gradual process. We believe that continuing your research on controllable nuclear fusion is the best choice. Upon hearing Yuan Dawei's words, everyone couldn't help but nod. Scientific research demands time and regularity, much like a sapling that cannot grow into a towering tree overnight, no matter how many resources are bestowed upon it. Some people spend their entire lives and may still fail to solve a single problem. Someone like Chen Yang, who at such a young age managed to crack the puzzle of controlled nuclear fusion, is undoubtedly a rare genius. Indeed, a person's life may seem long, but in reality, there is little time to accomplish many things. To excel in one endeavor is enough to leave a lasting legacy and contribute to the world. Wu Xian chimed in as well. Their implication was clear. Chen Yang should not be distracted and should focus solely on completing the Black Dragon project. That alone would suffice for a lifetime. Chen Yang smiled, paying no heed to these remarks. He got straight out of bed. Where are you going? Qian Siliang, Wu Xian, Yuan Dawei, and the others were all anxious beside him, fearing he might fall again. If he injured his brain, what would become of the Black Dragon project? If you insist on tying me to this already solved controlled nuclear fusion project, I might as well go home and tinker on my own, Chen Yang said. The others fell silent at his words. However, seeing that he was truly about to leave, they had no choice but to compromise and make concessions. How about this? You serve as the technical consultant for the Black Dragon project, and we'll call on you when we encounter difficulty. Of course, the rest of the time you can pursue your own work. Fine, but the time I spend on this daily must not exceed 1 hour. The Black Dragon project, the world's first and absolute behemoth of an endeavor. Just the participants numbered at least 20 to 30,000 with countless tasks each day. Overtime of an hour was minimal. How could it be limited to just 1 hour daily? This might be somewhat challenging, Qian Siliang said. If it's too difficult, then forget it. Find someone else. I still want to work on my arc reactor, Chen Yang replied. Qian Siliang and Wu Xian exchanged glances, their faces full of helplessness. For others, such a project would be a coveted opportunity. Why was it different with him? All right, let's leave it at that for now. You'll still be the consultant. If you find someone else, I'm fine without the role. Qian Siliang and Wu Xian's faces were bitter. If they had anyone else, would this project have been delayed until now? Oh, by the way, about this arc reactor project I'm working on, could you allocate some funding or treat it as an investment? Chen Yang asked with a smile. How much do you need? Qian Siliang quickly inquired. This time I need a bit more too. 2 million, Chen Yang said boldly. When she heard the word million, Wu Jingjing distinctly noticed that Qian Siliang and Wu Xian both let out a long sigh of relief, as if a weight had been lifted off their shoulders. No problem, we can certainly meet that, Qian Siliang said. For people at their level, every research grant application was in the billions. A 2 million project was merely the scale of 2 small National Natural Science Foundation projects. Such research funding might be difficult for junior faculty, but for leading figures in their field like them, it was just a matter of signing off. Moreover, Chen Yang had selflessly contributed the controlled nuclear fusion technology, whose value was immeasurable. Even as a reward, 2 million was hardly excessive. That's good then. If there's anything in your project you need to ask me, feel free to do so when I'm not busy, Chen Yang said with a smile. Great, great. Qian Siliang and Wu Xian replied, feeling much more at ease seeing Chen Yang so agreeable after receiving the funds. Soon word spread within their small circle at the Dragon Science Institute that Chen Yang had declined full responsibility as a consultant for the critical strategic controlled nuclear fusion project. Upon hearing this, Ma Yuhua couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. By now everyone at the institute knew she had turned away a genius who had cracked controlled nuclear fusion, making her a laughingstock. The more outstanding Chen Yang became, the more resentful she grew, and the more she revealed her own inadequacy. Even though he had been recognized by the senior experts, deep down, she still refused to acknowledge his brilliance. Building a small arc reactor. Isn't that a bit too fantastical, too scattered in thinking? That's just science fiction, Ma Yuhua couldn't help but remark. I think it's worth looking forward to. Remember, he single-handedly created controlled nuclear fusion while still in a technical school. Now that he's at our institute, why couldn't he make a small arc reactor? Yang Shui interjected. Exactly. Geniuses achieve what others cannot. When Einstein published 4 revolutionary papers in 1905, wasn't that also a solo effort? Another person added. Absolutely, and the arc reactor isn't entirely baseless. It has a solid theoretical foundation. Who knows, it might just turn science fiction into reality. For a genius who had already achieved controlled nuclear fusion, who could dare to bet that he wouldn't work another? In the laboratory, Chen Yang was preparing materials for his arc reactor. His mind now held a mature design blueprint, from theoretical foundations to precise calculations. Everything had been completed. What he was doing now was putting the plan in his mind down on paper. He was no longer alone. He had 3 assistants at his disposal. Though they could not make decisions, with a bit of training, they could handle many of the auxiliary tasks. I still need to assign them specific roles, or else things might get chaotic and hinder the project's progress. First step is to build a small arc model. Second, extract the arc reactor fuel. Third, use the reactor device to channel nuclear fusion energy and convert it into other forms of energy. In front of the computer, Chen Yang began categorizing the design tasks for the arc reactor based on reference materials and available resources. As he was busy working, the laboratory door opened. Song Ji Panjun and Zhou Hui walked in from outside, each unusually holding a stack of documents in their hands. Professor Chen, the 3 greeted him with smiles. Chen Yang looked at them, a hint of peculiarity in his expression. Just then Wu Jingjing also walked in from outside. Well, the sun must be rising from the west today. You 3 actually know how to study and improve. Wu Jingjing teased. Hearing her words, the 3 exchanged awkward smiles. Instead, they held up the documents and said to Chen Yang, Professor Chen, these are our original graduation projects. We've invested a lot of effort into them. With graduation looming, others have already finished half of their theses, and some are nearly done with their projects. The three of us haven't made much progress, and we're quite anxious. So I'd like to ask for your guidance to meet the school's graduation requirements as soon as possible. Yes, Professor Chen, we want to follow you in researching the latest technology, but we also have to face the reality of graduating. So, we hope you could consider our situation and help us solve our thesis issues first. Professor Chen, others have already published several papers, but we haven't even one yet. Well, face delays. Professor, please, you must help us, Pan Jun said with a grimace. Wu Jingjing, who had been puzzled by the three, now understood everything. Ah, you three. I thought the sun was rising from the west, and you wanted to study, but you're up to no good. Don't you? Even within the same department and major if research fields differ, the relevance of each other's projects varies greatly. You're asking Chen Yang to guide you on experiments based on topics set by other professors. Isn't that forcing him into a difficult position? Are you deliberately causing trouble? Wu Jingjing said. Jingjing, we don't want this either, but the school rules are clear. Without papers, we can't graduate. Please understand us. Pan Jun said aggrievedly. But by making Chen Yang review your previous projects now, aren't you setting him up? With such different fields, how could he possibly understand? Not just him, even other advisors wouldn't grasp each other's work. You're deliberately picking a fight. Every major is subdivided into many fields. For instance, those studying mathematics might focus on prime numbers or topological equations, and they can't understand each other's work. Another example, in chemistry, some study inorganic chemistry, others organic chemistry. Some work with macromolecules, others small molecules. The differences are immense. Even his grandfather, when looking at Qian Siliang's work, would only borrow some methods without overlap, let alone any intersection. Pan Jun and the others, hearing Wu Jingjing's words, also felt they had gone too far. All right, well, withdraw these projects. Please, Professor Chen, help us choose a feasible graduation topic and ask the dean to approve our new application. This diploma is really important to us. Yes, my father used every connection he had to get me this far. If I can't graduate, he'll kill me when I go home. The three said. With that, they gathered the documents on the table, ready to head to the lab. Wait, Chen Yang, who had been sitting silently all along, suddenly called out to them. You just want to graduate and finish your theses, right? Don't worry, you'll make sure you graduate smoothly. Within 3 months, I guarantee you'll publish articles and meet the graduation requirements. How about that? Pan Jun, Zhou Hui, and Song Ji, who had stood up to leave, had already resigned themselves to giving up. But unexpectedly, Chen Yang said this, catching them off guard. Upon hearing Chen Yang's words, the three were initially overjoyed, but upon second thought, they couldn't help but force a bitter smile. Professor Chen, it's not that we don't trust you, but you haven't served as a chief reviewer for any core journals, and you've just joined the Chinese Academy of Sciences. The graduation standards are set in stone. When the time comes for data and papers, we'll have nothing. How can we possibly graduate? Zhou Hui said. This was precisely why they preferred to follow the established luminaries of the academy. After all, by invoking the names of those great figures, the review process for their papers would be more lenient out of deference to their mentors. Publishing papers and graduating wouldn't be too difficult. If there's no data, we can generate it. If there are no papers, we can write them. Just follow my lead. If we haven't completed the experiments and published papers within 3 months, I will personally petition the dean to ask Academician Wu or Academician Qian to co-author a paper for you guaranteeing your graduation. Given that I achieved controlled nuclear fusion, I believe the dean will grant my request. Are you serious? Pan Jun turned around surprised and asked Chen Yang. Of course. All right. It's a deal. Pan Jun and the others exclaimed excitedly. Meanwhile, Wu Jingjing, standing beside them, looked anxious. She shot Chen Yang a meaningful glance and whispered in his ear, "Why are you making so many promises? Writing papers across disciplines is just asking for trouble." Chen Yang smiled but didn't change his stance. Wu Jingjing stamped her foot in frustration. Professor Chen, should we revise our graduation project topics? Let me see your materials. Here you go. The three quickly handed over their documents. Just as Wu Jingjing had thought, they doubted Chen Yang could truly understand their projects. Chen Yang glanced at the title, on the correlation between Lorentz flux wave attenuation and the ohmial function equation. This paper won't work. There's no correlation. You need to change your topic. Chen Yang declared after a single look at the title, without even flipping through the content. Everyone was left speechless. Professor Chen, are you joking? Currently, the mainstream scientific community widely believes that the attenuation and distribution of electromagnetic flux have a quantitative model, and the ohmial function equation is the closest known approximation. There are only some scattered issues to resolve. Our project aims to tackle these problems. This research is a blank slate, and our work holds great significance. Pan Jun argued. He's right. The mainstream scientific community does generally accept this equation, though it may have imperfections that are still being addressed. Wu Jingjing said to Chen Yang. She was familiar with this topic because her father had introduced it to her during a military expo they attended together. Her father was a researcher in military industry, and electromagnetic weapons were currently a hot topic. However, electromagnetic flux and energy attenuation posed the greatest obstacles to such weapons. One of the approaches to solving this problem was the Omiel equation. Yes, Professor Chen, the topic is fine. Perhaps you should take another look. If this equation were truly wrong, how could we have used it to build the first-generation electromagnetic cannon? Pan Jun quietly retorted. The reason the Omiel equation could be used to create the first-generation electromagnetic cannon is that within a certain range of variables, it infinitely approximates the Charcot decay curve. The Charcot decay curve. What is that? Why have we never heard of it? Pan Jun asked, utterly bewildered. Chen Yang was taken aback, realizing he had let something slip. Pan Jun's project topic was something Chen Yang had encountered in the future library. The Charcot decay curve equation would only be developed 50 years later by Professor Charcot of Yale University. At this moment, he was still a cluster of cells, not yet born. I've never heard of it either, Wu Jingjing said. Could you be mistaken? Zhou Hui asked Chen Yang. Whether I'm mistaken or not, you'll know in the future. I'm telling you clearly, this project of yours is definitely wrong. Even if you get results, they'll be forced and prove nothing. In the end, it will be futile and meaningless. Meaningless? Professor Chen, I can't accept that. Pan Jun said, his voice lacking conviction. You will in time. But what if following your equation, we still can't produce results? Pan Jun couldn't help asking. If we can, I'll honor my promise before the 3 months are up. Chen Yang replied. Pan Jun was taken aback by his unwavering confidence. Professor Chen, I didn't mean that. I meant, could we perhaps revise it later? No need. It will definitely work. Chen Yang said confidently. Then Song Ji and Zhou Hui also handed over their papers. Chen Yang reviewed each one. Like Pan Jun's project, he candidly pointed out the design flaws, even completely overturning the foundational premises of their research. Although Zhou Hui and Song Ji's reactions were less intense than Pan Jun's, they too received Chen Yang's promises. After verifying their topics, the three turned and left. Watching them go, Wu Jingjing was speechless. You're too blunt. Scientific research is about countless trials and errors. No one can predict the final outcome before the results are in. Besides, their projects have solid theoretical foundations if they're not as flawed as you claim. They may not know, but I do. Wrong is wrong. Knowing it's wrong and still letting them waste time and resources. It's better to have them help me get things done and produce results sooner. How can you be so sure your experimental design will yield the desired results? How do you know you're right? And by overturning their projects, you're not just offending them. You're also offending the advisors who guided their topics. Wu Jingjing said. Chen Yang paused. I didn't think of that. But if they get angry over this, there's nothing I can do. He shrugged. As expected, after Chen Yang rejected the graduation projects of Zhou Hui, Song Ji, and Pan Jun, it stirred up quite a commotion at the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Professor Chen has gone too far. I admit he's a master in nuclear physics, but does he really understand electromagnetic attenuation? Dr. Feng said indignantly in Liang Qing's office. As Liang Qing's doctoral student, he had also supervised Pan Jun's graduation project, a topic he had chosen himself. Now that Chen Yang had completely dismissed it, he felt resentful. His advisor Liang Qing sat pondering Chen Yang's words. Is it possible he's right? That the Omiel equation infinitely approximates the decay curve within a certain variable range? Liang Qing murmured to himself. Boss, you don't actually think he's right, do you? Dr. Feng asked, stunned. Liang Qing glanced at his disciple, took a sip of tea, and said slowly, that is not impossible either. Meanwhile, a similar scene unfolded at the former Song Ji's and Pan Jun's original mentor Chang Chungkang's place. There was no anger or fury as others had imagined, only contemplation. Now I am somewhat looking forward to seeing what kind of topic he can design. The entire Lonka Institute was astounded. Chen Yang had negated the topics originally assigned by Professor Liang and Professor Chang. Although their respective doctoral students were overseeing them, the professors had also reviewed them. Now completely rejecting their topics was akin to a slap in the face. Some predicted the two would be angered, but to everyone's surprise, they showed no reaction at all, instead eagerly anticipating Chen Yang's next move. Some said the two professors were magnanimous, while others believed they were waiting for Chen Yang to fail and be humiliated by reality. Meanwhile, Yuan Dawei was also troubled as he looked at the appointment letter in his hand. It was Chen Yang's professor title certificate, which he had specially applied for. Thanks to the special approval signed by Peng Tianfeng, the process was exceptionally fast. In just a few days, the entire procedure was completed. However, after hearing about the controversy within the institute, he began to hesitate. Some people are already discontented. If I give this to him now, wouldn't it be suspected of inciting opposition? Yuan Dawei said. Inciting opposition? You are setting a model representative, breaking conventions to recruit talent. The nation appointed you as the director of Lonka Institute to lead us in overcoming difficulties and producing more high-precision technologies, not to be a people-pleaser here. Qian Siliang said. Go ahead and issue it. If anyone is dissatisfied, tell them to come to me and old Qian. Inform them that if anyone can achieve similar results, we will apply for higher honors and benefits for them. Wu Xian chimed in from the side. Hearing their words, Yuan Dawei smiled. With your support, I feel much more. 2 days later, the entire Lonka Institute was abuzz again. Chen Yang, a graduate from a technical school, was directly appointed as a professor at Lonka Institute. This is too fast. Rocket speed. He made a breakthrough in a major strategic project. Even if they gave him an academician title, it would be justified. But it's just a small model, not yet fully constructed. It's unfair to credit him with all the merit. What's there to object to? Not even giving him a professor title for such a significant contribution would be the real injustice. Exactly. I also think Professor Chen deserves the title. If you're capable, go tackle a similar project yourself. I can't tackle it, but I still object. I will report this. As expected, on the day of the announcement, the principal's office received anonymous letters. Though few in number, they cited Lonka Institute's promotion regulations. The arguments were well-reasoned. Simultaneously, the Science and Technology Bureau also received phone calls and letters. All existing promotion regulations failed to cover Chen Yang's exceptional case, and according to current rules, he was indeed in violation. But soon a special clause came into effect. 2 days later, the National Science and Technology Bureau and Lonka Institute issued statements. Almost simultaneously, they had reinvestigated and verified Chen Yang's title evaluation process. All procedures complied with regulations, all materials met standards, and there was no violation. The reports were unfounded, and Chen Yang's title remained unchanged. Signatures Peng Tianfang Qian Siliang Wu Xian Bai Jingli. Seeing that string of signatures, everyone drew in a sharp breath. The evaluation of Professor Chen alone required the endorsement of the entire nuclear field's powerhouse team. Your professor evaluation really had style, stirring up both Lonka Institute and the Science and Technology Bureau. So many bigwigs backing you up. It's more prestigious than being an academician. Wu Jingjing said to Chen Yang with a smile. I didn't expect it either, Chen Yang replied, continuing to check his computer without looking up. Only you could be so carefree. But fools have fortune. With so many bigwigs supporting you, you can walk sideways from. Wu Jingjing said enviously. They'll walk however it's comfortable, Chen Yang replied without thinking. Seeing no response, Wu Jingjing fell silent. She peeked at Chen Yang's computer screen, then her eyes widened in shock. You're really going to redesign their original topics? They said the theme and name can't be changed, so I have to alter the design inside, Chen Yang said helplessly. But, do you understand this? Wu Jingjing couldn't help asking. Chen Yang smiled and said nothing more. Do you want me to help you look up some literature? Wu Jingjing asked. My research doesn't really need literature. There's a reason so many people question and report you, Wu Jingjing said, somewhat speechless. Wu Jingjing stood by feeling idle. Half an hour later, Chen Yang let out a long breath and stretched. Done. Working with fixed topics for experiments is really troublesome. You know it's right, but you still have to go to great lengths to prove it. Chen Yang said. Help me print these out. He pointed to a few files. Are you working on their graduation projects now? Wu Jingjing asked, eyes wide. The charts and text seemed normal enough, but why were there so many calculations? Moreover, many of the calculations were highly advanced, completely beyond her comprehension. Yes, I redesigned their graduation projects, Chen Yang said casually. Half an hour later, the three walked in again, looking at Chen Yang with strange expressions. They couldn't believe that in just a few days this person younger than them had been appointed as a professor and had so many bigwigs vouch for him. In contrast, they were still struggling with their undergraduate theses. These are the graduation projects teacher Chen has designed for you. Conduct your experiments based on these from now on, Wu Jingjing said, handing 3 sets of documents to Pan Jun and the others. Taking the documents, they frowned. Were these the same topics? Does he really understand this? He redesigned everything in such a short time. Impossible, they murmured quietly. Then with skeptical expressions, they slowly opened the experimental plans. The front parts and experimental designs were similar to theirs with no major changes. But then Pan Jun's eyes widened like saucers. What are these mathematical formulas on the next few pages? The dense calculations were completely incomprehensible to him. Most importantly, many of the mathematical tools and theories used here were beyond the theoretical level of this academic underachiever. So, can you understand it? Wu Jingjing asked Pan Jun. Pan Jun's face reddened. Well, the calculations are a bit heavy. I need to go back and verify them. No need to verify. You can't understand it. Pan Jun was rendered speechless by a single remark, struggling to find a way to refute it. You do not need to understand these mathematical formulas, just remember the conclusions at the bottom. When conducting the experiment, follow the steps meticulously, collect the data upon completion, and finally verify the results using this formula, Chen Yang said. Hearing his words, Pan Jun felt as if he had taken 1,000 blows. Next, Song Ji and Zhou Hui found themselves in a similarly dire situation. Their experiment was not only filled with a dizzying array of complex mathematical derivations, but also required a redesigned experimental plan, driving them further to despair. You too need not attempt to understand these mathematical derivations. You won't comprehend them, and it's a pure waste of time. Just follow my experimental design. Upon hearing this, the three exchanged awkward and ashamed glances, yet their eyes burned with a desire for revenge. The three hurriedly exchanged a few words before leaving under the pretense of needing to familiarize themselves with the plan. Outside, they were furious, clutching the plan like a certificate of humiliation. This is so embarrassing. How could Teacher Chen come up with such complex mathematical formulas that we can't even understand? What a disgrace. No, we must understand it and regain our dignity in front of Teacher Chen, Pan Jun declared. Exactly. Let's find some friends from the math department to help us out, and once we're done, we'll return to challenge Teacher Chen. Song Ji remarked. Perhaps Teacher Chen doesn't understand these mathematical formulas either. Once we figure them out, we can properly test him. What do you think his expression will be? Zhou Hui said with a smile. The three couldn't help but feel a surge of joy at his words. At 7:30 in the evening, Pan Jun impatiently asked a group of 7 or 8 math students, "Are you guys even capable of handling this? You've been busy all day, and yet you still haven't managed to solve a single formula. Aren't you supposed to be invincible in mathematics? How can you not understand the equations written by Teacher Chen?" Pan Jun asked impatiently. "This mathematical formula is too complex," replied Gao Chen, known as the Prince of Mathematics, looking exhausted. "Is that it? Complex?" Pan Jun couldn't help but scoff. "You see only a few short mathematical expressions, but these are simplified versions. Many steps have been omitted, and the derivation of those steps is quite intricate. Stop the nonsense. Oh, just tell me if you can understand it or not." A look of difficulty crossed Gao Chen's face. "It's hard to say. Oh, I can only promise to try. The calculations are simply overwhelming." "Pan Jun, where did this come from? I've scoured the math library, and there's nothing like it. Moreover, this mathematical derivation uses many concepts I haven't even heard of. I suspect this might be the proof manuscript of some mathematical master." "It's perfectly fine to admit your own limitations. There's nothing shameful about it. Don't say it's just a difficult problem. Coincidentally, I have a classmate in the mathematics department at Hucking University. They'll contact him to help crack this." With that, he reached to take the materials. Smack! Gao Chun slammed down on the experimental plan. "Leave the materials here." Meanwhile, several others from the math department looked at the documents with similarly intense eyes. They appeared as if possessed. Clearly, they wouldn't rest until the problem was resolved. No one would take the material. Pan Jun was so frightened that he kept retreating. You guys go eat first. I'll make a few copies for you." The math students looked at each other, then spoke in unison. "You go make copies. Well, wait here. Aren't you We need to solve the problems first." Pan Jun looked at the intensely focused individuals, feeling a bit scared, and quickly ran out with the materials. Once Pan Jun and the others escaped the gaze of the math students, he snapped a photo of the materials again and sent it to his friend in the mathematics department at Hucking University, and then he ignored it. As for the operational steps of the experimental plan, there was nothing difficult about it. It was merely the standard procedure of data collection followed by statistical analysis and verification, no different from previous experiments. Song Ji and Zhou Hu's plans were equally unremarkable. A week later, before Pan Jun could inquire, a call came directly from his classmate at Hucking University. "Pan Jun, please tell me honestly whose genius is behind this. I need to consult them." "You can't be serious. There are so many math experts there, and instead of consulting them, you're coming to Lonka Academy. Don't you fear being scolded for betraying your teachers and abandoning your school? We've already asked everyone we could these past few days, even setting up a special group for it. Unfortunately, we are only just getting to the 3rd step of the proof, and we've been stuck at the 4th step for 2 days with 0 progress, so we want to consult this master." The voice on the other end of the line sounded sincere. "Pan Jun, could it really be that hard? Could it be that the problem itself is flawed, making it impossible for you to prove it?" "There's no issue with the problem. It's absolutely brilliant." Then he half-heartedly replied, "We'll see when our master has time to discuss it further." With that, he hung up the phone and prepared to head to the laboratory. He had been avoiding going out under the pretext of not having finished reviewing the plan, but it seemed he could no longer hide. As soon as he stepped outside, he found a group of disheveled individuals with bloodshot eyes standing at the door, resembling zombies. "What happened to you all? Have you been infected by a biochemical virus?" Pan Jun couldn't help but take a step back. These individuals were all bloodshotted and exhausted, yet their gazes were filled with fervor. "Pan Jun, take us to see Teacher Chen. We want to consult him about the derivation of that mathematical formula." Gao Chun said earnestly. "Why don't you go by yourselves?" Pan Jun replied irritably. "Teacher Chen said he was busy and didn't have time," Gao Chun said with disappointment, like an unappreciated concubine. "Let's go." Coincidentally, he said he would explain the plan to me today, and you can take the opportunity to listen to, Pan Jun said dismissively. "All right." Gao Chen's eyes lit up. "Let's go. Hurry up," another math student said. "When you talk to Teacher Chen, be sure to mind your tone and show some respect. Teacher Chen is my teacher, not yours, and he is under no obligation to teach you. Do you understand?" Pan Jun reminded everyone. "We will definitely pay attention and ensure that Professor Chen does not feel displeased." They answered cautiously, glancing at Pan Jun with envy in their eyes. Pan Jun looked at the frantic Gao Chun and his companions, a look of utter incomprehension on his face. Yet despite this, he had no choice but to head towards the laboratory. On one hand, he hadn't been there for days. On the other, these fellows simply gave him no reason or opportunity to refuse. Judging by their stance, they would drag him there even if they had to carry him. However, once they arrived outside Chen Yang's laboratory, they all became subdued, their faces brimming with tension and anticipation. "Wait here. Let me ask Teacher Chun if you can sit in on the lecture," Pan Jun said. "Thank you, classmate." Gao Chun and the others expressed their gratitude to Pan Jun. 3 minutes later, he emerged again. "Let's go." Teacher Chen said, "It's fine," Pan Jun announced. Even though he still couldn't grasp Chen Yang's experimental plan, seeing these people so cautious, while he could pass through unhindered, stirred a strange sense of superiority within him. Hearing Pan Jun's words, Gao Chun and his team were overjoyed and slowly walked in. "Hello, Teacher Chun." They gazed at Chen Yang, their eyes shining as if they were beholding a deity. "Teacher Chen, this is a small token of our appreciation. Please accept it." One person behind Gao Chun produced a small Starbucks gift box they had prepared earlier, offering it respectfully to Chen Yang. Pan Jun watched in astonishment, never expecting these guys to have prepared such a move. "No need. Keep it. I don't like coffee," Chen Yang said with a faint smile. Then addressing the group, he said, "I heard from Pan Jun that you wish to listen to the lecture. These theoretical derivations might be a bit complex. He'll only explain them once. How much you grasp is entirely up to you." "Thank you, Teacher Chen. Well, listen attentively," Gao Chun said earnestly. "You're welcome," Chen Yang replied with a light smile. Then he began his explanation. "Teacher Chen, aren't you going to get a copy of the plan?" Gao Chen asked. "No need. It's all in my head," Chen Yang said with a smile. Awe deepened in Gao Chen's eyes, while Pan Jun beside him wore a look of pride. After all, this was his mentor. Next, Chen Yang commenced the lecture. Everyone listened intently, not daring to be distracted for a moment. Initially, Gao Chun and the others managed fine. But about 10 minutes and he visibly grew tense and strained, his brow furrowed noticeably, his eyes filled with confusion. Beside him, his classmates also had eyes full of a thirst for knowledge, but even more so bewilderment. As for Pan Jun, his expression was relatively calm because he was utterly clueless about those mathematical derivations. An hour later, beads of sweat covered Gao Chen's forehead, his expression growing more pained, yet he dared not pause his note-taking for a moment. 2 hours and Pan Jun was completely dumbfounded. He hadn't understood anything from start to finish, and it was pure torment for him. But Gao Chun and his group felt time fly by, as if the 2 hours had ended before they even realized it. All right, that covers the theoretical derivation of this mathematical formula. If you're interested, you can review it on your own. If there's anything you don't understand, think it through carefully yourselves. Gao Chun and the others were now a mix of exhaustion, excitement, and helplessness. Time had passed too quickly. At the start of the lecture, they felt a sudden clarity, but soon they were clearly out of their depth. They hadn't even heard of many of the concepts used, let alone understood them. Yet Chen Yang's explanation was like a flash of lightning in the darkness. Though it vanished in an instant, it illuminated the entire sky, giving them direction to move forward in the night. "Thank you, Teacher Chen." Gao Chun and the others bowed respectfully again. Watching them leave, Pan Jun couldn't help but shake his head. They say math students are the creme de la creme, the top 1% in IQ. And this is it. Teacher Chun had already explained it, and they still didn't get it. "Pan Jun, do you have any questions?" Chen Yang asked. "I have none," Pan Jun answered without hesitation. Hearing this, as they stood at the door, Gao Chun and his group nearly stumbled in frustration. How they wished they had Pan Jun's privilege. "If you have no questions, then focus on your experiments. I've already applied to the dean for your experimental materials and also secured a lab bench for you. For your graduation project, you only have 2 hours a day. Follow the experimental plan I gave you, collect all the data, and you'll be done. The rest of the time you'll be at my disposal," Chen Yang said. Hearing that Chen Yang had specially requested a lab bench and materials just for his original project, Pan Jun was deeply moved. "Yes, I'll follow your arrangements, Teacher Chen," Pan Jun said with immense gratitude. From then on, Pan Jun began to diligently carry out his experiments. As Pan Jun started his experiment, Song Ji and Zhou Hui also entered the lab, just like Pan Jun. Unlike Pan Jun, when they showed their experimental plans to the math department, the latter gave up at a single glance. "Give us a copy of the materials, but we'll study this only after we've fully understood Pan Jun's set." Thus the two were left undisturbed. At 1:30 p.m., Chen Yang looked at Pan Jun as he walked in and asked, "How's it going?" "Finished today's experiment. I've completed it exactly according to your experimental plan," Pan Jun said. "And the results?" "Not ideal. The data from the lab is miles apart from your mathematical simulation curve." Pan Jun replied. Chen Yang frowned. "Let me see your experiment log." Soon Pan Jun handed the logbook to Chen Yang. Chen Yang glanced at it. Slap. He slammed the logbook onto the table, startling Pan Jun. "Take a look yourself. Where did you go wrong?" Pan Jun's heart sank, a puzzled look on his face as he picked up the logbook. But after staring at it for a long time, he couldn't find the mistake. There's nothing wrong here. I followed the experimental design exactly, Pan Jun said. If you can't find the error, don't bother coming after today. Chen Yang's voice turned icy. Hearing this, Pan Jun's face darkened. He picked up the logbook and looked again. 3 minutes later, his face, Teacher Chen, I'm sorry. I didn't read this part carefully. The previous designs all had the electromagnetic poles rotating left at 60 degrees. I didn't realize yours was a right rotation. If you ever jump to conclusions like that again, get out of my sight immediately. I have no time to waste on you. Pan Jun's face flushed crimson, burning with both anger and shame, and he dared not utter another word. This scene startled Song Ji and Zhou Hui, who were conducting experiments nearby. They had never imagined that Teacher Chen could be so fierce during an experiment. Another 2 hours passed. Pan Jun walked over with an expression of astonishment, holding the experimental records. How is it this time? Chen Yang asked. This time, the actual values closely align with the theoretical predictions with a deviation of only 2. Pan Jun stared at Chen Yang in shock. Good. Continue tomorrow. Also go back and think about why that 2 error exists. Of course you can. Chen Yang's tone was indifferent. To Pan Jun, it felt as though this younger man had no faith in his ability to. Since your own experimental error caused the data to be flawed today, work 4 extra hours tonight to make up for the lost time, Chen Yang stated flatly. Pan Jun was momentarily stunned, instinctively wanting to refuse, but in the end he acquiesced obediently. Meanwhile, the Black Dragon project had commenced as planned. Wu Xian and Qian Siliang served as the chief and deputy chief engineers of the project. At this moment, however, they were fretting over the project proposal. According to the previous plan, they should now be installing heat-resistant materials and plasma cooling equipment as per the original design. The design of the heat-resistant materials and the plasma cooling equipment was the first critical technical hurdle. Yet following the plan provided by Chen Yang, they could not achieve the desired design effect. In fact, they could not even pass the preliminary tests, let alone subsequent experiments. These heat-resistant materials are the first step. Temperatures reaching hundreds of millions of degrees are beyond the capacity of ordinary materials. Even existing heat-resistant materials can only withstand up to 200 degrees. How does he manage it? The design doesn't seem very clear on this point. A project supervisor below spoke bitterly to Wu Xian and Qian Siliang. Are you all strictly following the experimental design? Absolutely, without any deviation. Hey, race our project timeline and the plan, there's no difference. The supervisor addressed Wu Xian. Wu Xian and Qian Siliang compared the documents and found no discrepancies. After reviewing the design, their brows furrowed. Previously, when they had looked at this design, they had only admired its ingenuity, assuming it would work flawlessly. They never expected that they would be unable to replicate it. This problem, we might have to ask Chen Yang to come and resolve it, Wu Xian said. The one who tied the knot must untie it. This issue probably can't be solved by anyone else. Hurry and invite Chen Yang to help. Have Long Zhan send a helicopter to pick him up, Qian Siliang said. In the laboratory, Zhou Hui and Song Ji were presenting their experimental records to Chen Yang. Although they were inwardly unconvinced after witnessing Pan Jun's fate, they dared not act rashly. There's nothing major wrong with the experiment. Next time, ensure every step is precise and strictly follow the protocol. Don't settle for close enough. In scientific research, a minor error can lead to a vast discrepancy. Song Ji and Zhou Hui exchanged knowing smiles. A vocational school graduate was teaching them how to work again, huh? Just then Wu Jingjing walked in from outside. Chen Yang, come with me quickly. The Black Dragon project has run into trouble. My grandfather and Professor Qian are asking for your help to solve it, Wu Jingjing said to Chen Yang. And why aren't you carrying your phone? They had to call me to reach you, Wu Jingjing chided. Chen Yang glanced at her. I'm in the middle of reviewing their experimental procedures. Wait a moment. You can review it when you get back. They're getting anxious over there, Wu Jingjing urged. Chen Yang fixed his gaze on her. She felt uneasy under his stare, but finally relented. All right, but try to be quick. Zhou Hui and Song Ji had been nursing their resentment, but upon hearing Chen Yang's words, they felt immense pressure. Old Chun was making Qian Lao Wu Lao and a host of scientists wait because of them. Teacher Chun, the Black Dragon project is critical. Perhaps you should go first. Before he could finish, seeing Chen Yang's expression, he wisely fell silent. Subsequently, Chen Yang continued reviewing the experimental records, pointing out deficiencies. This took another hour before he was fully done. Wu Jingjing had been extremely anxious on the sidelines, but after calling her grandfather, she settled down to wait. Teacher Chun is doing well, we should fully support him. Just wait there and don't rush him. Bring him over whenever he's finished. This project has been stalled at this stage for so long, a little more waiting won't matter, Wu Xian said. Having received her grandfather's reply, Wu Jingjing stopped urging him. Seeing Chen Yang finish, she approached. It's getting late. Would you like to have dinner before we go? Chen Yang glanced at her again. With Wu Lao, Qian Lao, and a host of scientists and engineers waiting, do you think I could enjoy a meal here? Wu Jingjing stamped her foot in frustration, looking aggrieved. Weren't you the one who made them wait just now? Let's go. Wu Lao and Qian Lao are probably getting impatient, Chen Yang said. Wu Jingjing rolled her eyes. So you do care about keeping them waiting. Nonetheless, she followed him out. A black helicopter was already parked outside. Long Zhan and two soldiers wearing sunglasses and combat uniforms stood with hands clasped behind their backs. Upon seeing Chen Yang emerge, they snapped a crisp salute. Sorry to keep you waiting, Chen Yang said apologetically. You're too kind, Long Zhan replied. Chen Yang then boarded the helicopter. Wu Jingjing watched longingly from the side. Aren't you coming? I don't have clearance. You're my secretary, how could you not have clearance? Chen Yang said. He then turned to Long Zhan. Could you please check her clearance? Long Zhan nodded. 3 minutes later. The approval has come through. She can accompany us. Wu Jingjing was stunned, hardly believing her ears. Then with a burst of joy, she leaped aboard. Nearby Zhou Hui and Song Ji watched the entire scene. The helicopter blades whipped their hair into disarray, and their hearts were equally unsettled. Zhou Hui, do you think we've been taking things for granted? Have we been too dismissive of old Chen? Song Ji asked, his emotions complex as he watched the helicopter depart. Chen Yang's treatment and the level of regard he commanded far exceeded their expectations. Zhou Hui was silent for a moment before replying, perhaps. If he can truly achieve ideal results according to the experimental design and publish high-quality papers, then ill respect him. Chen Yang, accompanied by Wu Jingjing, boarded a helicopter and under Long Zhan's guidance soon arrived at a certain base. As the helicopter touched down, they saw numerous guards on duty, clearly indicating this was a secret facility. Although his grandfather was Wu Xian and his father a military engineer, and he had often heard about such matters, this was the first time he had actually set foot inside a secret base, especially one with such a high level of security. These are your security passes. Mr. Chen, as a consultant, you have high-level clearance. However, Miss Jingjing, your access is limited. We please refrain from wandering around. Long Zhan handed the passes to Chen Yang and Wu Jingjing. Don't worry, I understand, Wu Jingjing replied. Subsequently, the two passed through numerous checkpoints and entered the inner area. Professor Chen, you finally arrived. We've been waiting for you. Wu Xian and Qian Siliang, their faces beaming with delight, hurried over to greet him. The others, however, displayed no such enthusiasm. In fact, their attitude was rather cold. Compared to Qian Siliang and Wu Xian, they clearly found it hard to believe that this young, inexperienced lad, a mere technical school graduate, could solve problems they themselves had failed to crack. Elder Wu, Elder Qian, what's the issue? You could have just called me. There was no need to go through all this trouble, Chen Yang said. Sending a helicopter all the way to the Academy of Sciences had made the entire institute aware. Sorry for not briefing you beforehand, but we were left with no other options. Wu Xian said, then beckoned to the project manager nearby. The manager stepped forward and handed the project documents to Chen Yang. Why so much? Chen Yang frowned. These are all the project materials. Would like you to go over the overview, first to get a sense of the entire project. The manager explained. No need. Just tell me where you are now and what problems you're facing, Chen Yang said. The manager hadn't expected Chen Yang to be so arrogant. How could he possibly understand the project without even looking at the documents? Would he know where the issues lay? Especially since this was such a novel project. Similarly, upon hearing Chen Yang's words, not only the manager, but also the engineers nearby looked displeased, particularly those who had spent days trying to solve the problem, their faces now filled with resentment. They couldn't figure out where Elder Wu and Elder Qian had found this insolent fellow. Shall he just hand him the project documents and tell him about the issues? Wu Xian interjected. Hearing Wu Xian's words, Li Ziqing, though reluctant, suppressed his discontent and repeated the same report he had given Wu Xian to Chen Yang. After listening, Chen Yang furrowed his brow. Didn't I tell you before to use laminar cooling with gradual temperature reduction? Easy for you to say. The material we're using can't withstand that much pressure. During cooling, it fractures due to internal stress, leading to total material failure and ultimately preventing us from achieving the target temperature. Li Ziqing said to Chen Yang, a look of contempt in his eyes. Is that it? He doesn't even understand the basics, yet he thinks he can solve our problems. Chen Yang glanced at the design drawings, then at the parameters, and understood the situation. Professor Chen, when you built that model earlier, did you encounter this problem? Wu Xian asked Chen Yang. Chen Yang shook his head. Then what do you think about this issue? How have you been tackling it? Instead of answering Wu Xian, Chen Yang turned to the manager and asked. We added extra layers of high-temperature resistant material to the original design, but it didn't work. No matter how many layers we added, internal fracturing still caused the furnace lining to fail, preventing localized cooling. Eventually, the entire furnace risked being burned through, Li Ziqing said. That approach won't work. Have you tried other methods? Chen Yang asked again. Other methods? Li Ziqing glanced at Wu Xian and Qian Siliang, then said to Chen Yang. We also tried reducing the inner layers, and even substituting with other materials, but none were suitable. As of now, no material can withstand such high temperatures, so the problem remains unsolved. Li Ziqing said. Hearing this, Chen Yang's brow tightened. This was a problem he hadn't considered before. nor needed to since the earlier small-scale device hadn't faced it. Now with this new challenge, he would have to make adjustments. Professor Chen, do you have any ideas? Qian Siliang asked. No, Chen Yang shook his head. But I can, Chen Yang said. Then turning to Wu Xian and Qian Siliang, he added, now could you please arrange an office for me, one with a computer? As our project's technical consultant, your office is already prepared. Let us take you there, Wu Xian said. Good. They'll head over now and come up with a solution as soon as possible, Chen Yang said. As they watched him leave, the manager Li Ziqing and the others exchanged glances. Can he really do it? I have a bad feeling about this, said one engineer. I doubt he even understood the problem. Elder Qian, isn't it too risky to stake everything on him? Someone asked Qian Siliang. Do we have a better option? Can we solve it ourselves? If you could, why would we have bothered him? Qian Siliang retorted bluntly. Chen Yang arrived at his office. He sat alone in the office chair, closing his eyes and thought. Is there anything I can do? Wu Jingjing asked. Not for now. They'll call you if I need you. Having said that, he closed his eyes again. Seeing this, Wu Jingjing simply left. As his secretary, she too had been assigned an office. Chen Yang directly opened his system and revisited the principles of controllable nuclear fusion, making sure he hadn't missed anything. However, the issue of high-temperature resistant materials was not elaborated upon. Subsequently, Chen Yang entered the future library once more. 10 minutes later, his consciousness withdrew. He then deftly opened the database and searched for an article. Jingjing, help me translate this article, Chen Yang said. Wu Jingjing came over and glanced at it briefly. This is an article on polymer chemistry. Do you need to read this? Yes. Wu Jingjing was speechless, but proceeded to translate the article for him. It must be said that Wu Jingjing was truly formidable when it came to English. Despite the abundance of specialized terminology relying on her linguistic prowess and professional software, she managed to accurately translate the article within 5 minutes. After reading it, Chen Yang, combining what he had studied in the library and the entire process of controlled nuclear fusion, experienced a sudden epiphany. Let's go. Chen Yang stood up. Solved. So fast. Is it fast? When they saw Chen Yang and Wu Jingjing emerge, Wu Xian, Qian Siliang, and the others had not yet left. Professor Chen, do you have any other requirements? Is the office lacking any equipment? Tell me what's missing and I'll have it arranged immediately. Qian Siliang said. No requirements. Then you are. I've found the solution. Chen Yang, what? You've already found a way. How is it so fast? Qian Siliang asked in astonishment. What is the method? Tell us quickly. Wu Xian also urged immediately. The other engineers were 3 parts shocked, 7 parts skeptical. The tokamak device I originally designed was small-scale, so issues like material pressure tolerance weren't prominent and were within controllable limits. But now to make it commercially viable, the materials must not only withstand extreme heat, but also handle immense pressure. The original materials can no longer meet these requirements. They need further improvement, Chen Yang said. As he finished speaking, the engineers below couldn't help but snicker. Of course we know these materials need improvement. But improving materials is no easy feat. Many critical technical hurdles at their core are material problems, Li Ziqing remarked. I have found a solution. Just add a few additives to the original formula and slightly adjust 2 parameters during the later forming process. This is the improved process. Chen Yang then handed over a piece of paper. Everyone looked at it eagerly, but upon seeing it they couldn't help but laugh. The process design was too crude. It only contained a few chemical formulas and metal elements, along with terms like quenching, annealing, forming, cooling time, material type, and process flow diagram sequence numbers. You call this a material process? A material engineer beside him sneered at Chen Yang. Chen Yang glanced at them, knowing that no matter what he said, they wouldn't believe him. He then turned his gaze to Qian Siliang and Wu Xian beside him. Elder Qian, Elder Wu, this is my improved material design plan. If you trust me, you can have it processed and formed according to this right now based on the original materials. If not, there's nothing I can do. Chen Yang said. Then turning to Wu Jingjing, he said, let's go. Wu Jingjing hadn't expected Chen Yang to be so assertive. Nevertheless, she said nothing and followed Chen Yang out. Watching Chen Yang being escorted away by Long Zhan, everyone present was extremely annoyed. Too arrogant. Before the plan has even succeeded, he dares to be so haughty. This is simply too much. So conceited. With such a temper, I wonder if his skills match. Is this so-called forming process even feasible? An engineer nearby asked. What kind of nonsense is this? Can it really be made? Another engineer questioned. Then everyone looked towards Elder Qian and Elder Wu. Qian Siliang and Wu Xian exchanged a glance. Let's try it first. As for this improved process, we can have Xiao Ni, who is in charge of material preparation, take a look. Everyone nodded. Soon Ni Qingjiang entered from outside. After hearing the situation, he felt immense pressure. This is the improvement plan Professor Chen left behind. See if you can understand it, Wu Xian said. After reading the paper, Ni Qingjiang looked a bit embarrassed. Others couldn't help but laugh. You can't understand it either, can you? Well, this material process is quite complex with a total of 132 steps. Since I've just recently started working with it, I'm not very familiar yet, and need to cross-check it with the process manual, Chen Yang said apologetically. Check it now, Chen Yang ordered. Hearing Elder Qian's words, Chen Yang stopped hesitating and immediately took out his computer. He began comparing the material flow. Initially his expression was tense, but soon it turned to shock. And the shock grew more profound. Correct. Everything was correct. Not a single error. Incredible. Truly incredible. How did he remember such a complex process so clearly? And there isn't a single mistake. This single sheet of paper encapsulates the essence of the improved process. With this, our improvement path is crystal clear. Elder Qian, tell me, who is this genius? I want to have a good discussion with him. Seeing King Jiang's expression, everyone was also astounded. Do you mean this paper wasn't scribbled randomly? Li Ziqing asked. Of course not. This paper is the original high-temperature resistant material process could withstand temperatures over 100 million degrees, but its strength was insufficient. With this improvement, I have a premonition that the strength will be drastically enhanced. Furthermore, this process design completely resolves the difficulties encountered during material preparation and forming. A master. An absolute master. Chen Yang couldn't help but praise. Hearing this, everyone had complex expressions, especially the engineers who had just doubted Chen Yang. Their faces now soured. Wu Xian and Chen Yang, however, paid them no mind. If we follow this set of processes, how long will it take to produce the material? Chen Yang asked Chen Yang. This improved process doesn't add many preparation steps. Although additional materials are used, they won't significantly impact the overall timeline. So it shouldn't differ much from the original material preparation time, Chen Yang said. After a moment of contemplation, he addressed Elder Qian and Elder Wu 3 days. At most 3 days to deliver the first batch of material. They'll see if I can work overtime to get it done in 2 days. Good, I'll await your news. 2 days later. At the Black Dragon Project large tokamak device base. Chen Yang, Wu Xian, and others were anxiously waiting nearby. The new material had been installed. They were awaiting the test results. No one spoke in the office. They all waited in silence. Finally, the office door opened, and Li Ziqing entered, his face beaming with delight. Elder Qian, Elder Wu. The test passed. As he spoke, the atmosphere in the office instantly became lively, and everyone clapped involuntarily. The new material had no issues but can withstand temperatures over 100 million degrees. Li Ziqing exclaimed excitedly. It actually succeeded. Excellent. With the material problem solved, we've broken through the first major hurdle. Chen Yang and Wu Xian's faces also showed gratified smiles. Everyone, does anyone still doubt Professor Chen's abilities now? The people below exchanged glances. No more doubts. We're convinced. Completely convinced. We were wrong before. We must go and apologize in person. I was short-sighted. I never imagined such a genius truly exists in this world. Chen Yang and Wu Xian gazed at the engineers below, their faces finally breaking into smiles. In truth, it wasn't just the engineers who were taken aback. Even they themselves were equally astonished. They had only anticipated that Chen Yang could resolve the issue, but they never imagined he would do so with such breathtaking speed. Every project, after all, has a long journey from the laboratory to practical application. A transformation process that can be exceedingly protracted, fraught with problems never encountered in the lab. Though they had seen Chen Yang's tokamak model, they were still uncertain about its real-world application. Now, witnessing his swift problem-solving, their hearts were completely at ease. I feel we can accelerate our pace even further. Indeed, we might vastly improve the completion speed, Chen Yang said. I was thinking the same, Wu Xian echoed. That will likely require frequent visits to Teacher Chen, Chen Yang remarked, then turned to Wu Xian. They'll leave that to you. Why leave it to me? Wu Xian feigned ignorance. Didn't you sacrifice your granddaughter just for this day, eh? Don't think I can't see your sly old fox's tail, Chen Yang said. So what if you see it? I'm happy. If you're capable, have your son give you a brilliant and beautiful granddaughter too. At the Lonka Institute, Wu Jingjing approached Chen Yang, her emotions tangled as she looked at the young man younger than herself. Was he the boy who had helped her grandfather solve the problem that even academicians couldn't crack? Her grandfather had just called to tell her that the problem was completely resolved and the process Chen Yang improved had been classified as a state secret. As for rewards, they would be recorded and distributed once the project was fully completed. Oh, Chen Yang nodded and continued, burying himself in his experiment. Gazing at Chen Yang's profound calculations, the bewilderingly complex experimental steps, and the unfamiliar materials, Wu Jingjing felt a pang of shame regarding her own title of genius. To call herself a genius in front of Chen Yang was inadequate. At least she was unworthy. How's your experiment going? Wu Jingjing asked Chen Yang. Not bad. Though those 3 can't help much, at least they're obedient for now. They'll make do, Chen Yang replied. Oh, by the way, there was a student from Tsinghua University who came from Yinjing to ask me a math question. I'm not a math teacher, so I didn't have time to answer and didn't see him. He said he would refuse to leave. Could you check if he's gone? I don't want him causing trouble if he really stays, Chen Yang. Wu Jingjing was speechless. Chen Yang's reputation as a genius didn't seem to have such a vast... Why were students from Yanjing flocking all the way here? Besides, as Chen Yang said, his expertise lay mainly in nuclear fusion and now material science. When did he delve so deeply into mathematics? Utterly puzzled, Wu Jingjing followed Chen Yang's hint and went to the Lonka Institute's reception area. Security had been greatly heightened, so no one could enter without internal approval. Arriving at the reception, Wu Jingjing asked the staff, "A visitor from Yanjing came to see Teacher Chen today." "Not yet. Teacher Chen has told him many times, but he won't listen and refuses to leave. If not for his Tsinghua student ID, I'd think he was here to cause trouble," the receptionist said. "Where is he now?" "Right there sitting in the hall." "Thanks." Teacher Chen's secretary, "I'll go talk to him." Wu Jingjing walked over to him. It was a young man hunched over the table, scribbling furiously, completely unaware of her presence. Wu Jingjing frowned. That silhouette seemed familiar. Chang Jianming. "Huh, who's calling me?" Startled Chang Jianming, who had been buried in calculations, turned around. "Wu Jingjing, what are you doing here?" "I work here now," Wu Jingjing said. "Aren't you from the foreign languages department? How did you end up here?" "That doesn't match your major," Chang Jianming asked with a smile. "I like it here. What's it to you?" Wu Jingjing replied haughtily. "So what's your story? Why did you travel all this way to become a freeloader?" "I came specifically to seek guidance from the master." "Guidance? On what?" "You're a math prodigy from Tsinghua, the pride of the math department. My grandfather says you'll surely be the future star of Longhua mathematics. The old professors in Tsinghua's math department treasure you like a gem. What problem can't you solve there that you have to come here? Wouldn't it break their hearts if they found out?" Wu Jingjing said. Chang Jianming's reputation was immense. Before college, he showed extraordinary mathematical talent, winning first prize at the International Olympiad and securing a direct admission to Tsinghua, yet he gave it up to take the college entrance exam, entering Tsinghua as the top scorer from Yanjing that year. While others chose finance, economics, or Guanghua School, he picked mathematics, causing quite a stir at the time. They had been middle school classmates, so they knew each other well. Though they rarely kept in touch, later Chang Jianming's fame was so great that he became the quintessential other people's child among Yanjing mothers. It was hard not to know about him. I asked my advisors, but none could give me a good answer, not even a single approach to the problem. So I had to come seek help myself, Chang Jianming admitted. "What?" "The entire Tsinghua math department couldn't answer." "Are you sure you're not joking?" "How would I dare joke about something like this?" Chang Jianming said. "Let me see your problem." Chang Jianming pulled out printed photo materials. After looking at them, Wu Jingjing was torn between laughter and tears. "Isn't this the math derivation formula from Chen Yang's student's graduation thesis? How did you get it?" "A junior asked me, and I got it from him." Wu Jingjing was at a loss for words. A couple of days ago, the math researchers at Lonka Institute were also obsessed, going to Chen Yang for explanations. In the end, they only listened in when Chen Yang was explaining to Pan Jun, and he made it clear he would only explain it once. "And now you're here again. Teacher Chen has already told you to go back where you came from. He has no obligation to teach you." Chang Jianming's face turned grim. After a long pause, he finally said, "The reason I came here is precisely for this mathematical problem. If I cannot find a solution, I will not return. Even if you don't return, it's useless. You are stubborn, but he is even more so. He will never yield," Wu Jingjing said. "How do you know?" "I am his secretary. How could I not know?" "What? You're his secretary? That's wonderful. Please plead on my behalf, and I will surely reward you handsomely." Chang Jianming said. "If I have no interest in your reward. Besides, I advise you. I recall that in middle school your dream was to become a great scientific translator, helping to bring foreign scientific works into Chinese. And your idol was Fu Lei? Coincidentally, I possess the original manuscript of Mr. Fu Lei's posthumous work. I wonder if you'd be interested." Wu Jingjing, who had been about to refuse, fell silent instantly. "How could you possibly have that? That item was auctioned off last year by Chang Kuan of the Chang Corporation for a staggering 12 million. How could you have it? He is my father." Wu Jingjing returned to the laboratory once more. She wanted to refuse, but the condition Chang Jianming proposed was simply irresistible. 10 minutes later, she came back again. "Professor Chen said he has no time, but he has already explained it to Gao Chen earlier. If you have any questions, you can temporarily seek guidance from him. If you can comprehend the first 7 steps, you may consult him again," Wu Jingjing said. Upon hearing Wu Jingjing's words, Chang Jianming's eyes lit up. Thank you. They'll have my father wrap it up and send it to you immediately. I guarantee you'll receive it by tomorrow morning." Wu Jingjing stared at him as if he were a fool. "Your father spent 12 million to acquire it, and you're just giving it away like that. Won't he beat you to death when he gets back?" "No, he won't. I rarely ask him for anything. This is the first time. And although it's a considerable sum, it's not too much for my father." Truly the foolish son of a wealthy family. Was it worth it just to solve a mathematical problem? 3 days later, Wu Jingjing found her answer. She finally understood why both Gao Chun and Chang Jiaming were willing to invest such immense effort and cost into studying the mathematical formula within this experimental design. 3 days later, Gao Chun once again entered Chen Yang's laboratory clutching a document. "Professor Chen, my paper has been accepted." Accepted by math. At this moment, Gao Chen's face was flushed, his eyes gleaming with excitement. His entire body trembled as he held the document. Nearby Pan Jun Songji and Zhou Hui, who were conducting experiments, were startled upon hearing this, thinking Math was the most influential journal in the field of mathematics, standing alongside Nature Science Cell and The Lancet as one of the 5 giants. Any article published in these 5 journals was invariably a landmark masterpiece, a benchmark in its field representing the highest standard of its discipline. For a scholar to have even one article published in these journals in a lifetime was an achievement to be proud of. It would surely bring both fame and fortune, and even most professors at the Dragon Academy of Sciences had not attained such a feat. And Gao Chen, still a mathematics student, had already achieved such a remarkable milestone. His future accomplishments and status would undoubtedly be at the pinnacle of the industry. Wu Jingjing was well aware of the difficulty of being published in this journal. Since its inception, every author who had published there was over 30 years old. For someone like Gao Chen, publishing before the age of 28 was truly 1 in 10,000. Impressive. Admirable. Gao Chen, you're incredible. With this paper alone, staying at the Dragon Academy of Sciences and being promoted to professor would be no problem at all, Pan Jun said, his voice filled with envy. Gao Chun, however, walked up to Chen Yang and bowed deeply. "Professor Chen, I apologize. I published your work without your permission. Please don't take offense. But rest assured, the corresponding author of my paper is you. I only took the first author credit." "What? You gave him the corresponding author credit and then asked him not to mind? Are you out of your mind?" Pan Jun asked Gao Chun from the side. According to international convention, the corresponding author is the intellectual property owner of the paper, while the first author is merely the operator. Thus, for Gao Chun to grant Chen Yang the corresponding author status was already an immense gift, one that should inspire gratitude. How could he possibly ask for forgiveness? Was he out of his mind? "Shut up." Gao Chun snapped at Pan Jun. "If Professor Chen hadn't explained it to me, how could I have understood this previously unseen mathematical theory? How could I have organized it and submitted it to a complex journal like Math? How could I have enriched an existing branch of mathematics? All of this belongs to Professor Chen. I merely transcribed it, yet I have the honor of being the first author. I am unworthy of it," Gao Chen said. Upon hearing Gao Chen's words, Pan Jun and the others were stunned. He had discovered a new mathematical theory. Was he joking? Mathematics already had many branches, each incredibly difficult to make breakthroughs in. Could a mathematical derivation formula within a paper truly encompass an entirely new branch of mathematical theory? Ridiculous. With such an achievement, one could found a new school of thought. The crowd, hearing Gao Chen's words, grew even more skeptical. However, Gao Chen paid no heed to their expressions and looked back at Chen Yang. "Professor Chen, according to international convention, a newly discovered mathematical equation should be named after its creator. So when I submitted the paper, I took the liberty of calling it the Chen Yang equation." Math replied that they fully agreed with this naming and were willing to designate the newly discovered equation as the Chen Yang equation. "Do you have any objections?" Gao Chen asked. Pan Jun and the others were so astonished their jaws nearly dropped. Beside them, Wu Jingjing was equally shocked. In just one day, he had completed 3 sets of design plans, and within this graduation project, a new mathematical theory was born along with a mathematical equation named after himself. This is too absurd. Is he really that amazing? Why does that paper look ordinary to me, like it's copied from my original one? Pan Jun couldn't resist pouring cold water. "If you spout nonsense again, I'll slap you to death." Gao Chun, who had been so respectful to Chen Yang, erupted in fury upon hearing Pan Jun's words, cursing at him. In his eyes now, Chen Yang was his idol, his god. Insulting Chen Yang in his presence. Wasn't that a... Pan Jun's expression shifted as he watched Gao Chen suddenly grow impatient. "Why are you yelling at me? If I hadn't let you review those materials back, then would you ever have been able to touch this field or achieve such success?" Gao Chun was momentarily at a loss for words, but then stiffened his neck and said one thing at a time. "I'll thank you for what's due, but you must not disrespect Teacher Chen. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude." Pan Jun looked at this hot-headed man, too exasperated to speak. He then decided to ignore him. "Where's your Let me take a look." Chen Yang paid no heed to their quarrel and addressed Gao Chen directly. Hearing that Chen Yang wanted to see his thesis, Gao Chen's face lit up with surprise and delight. He then handed over the thesis he had printed in advance. Chen Yang glanced at it and immediately frowned. "You know my English is poor, yet you give me an English thesis? Teacher Chen, I'm sorry. I didn't think of that. I'll go back and translate it right away," Gao Chun said nervously. "No need," Chen Yang replied. He then turned and handed it to Wu Jingjing behind him. "Could you help me translate this?" Wu Jingjing smiled, secretly pleased, and without revealing her excitement, translated the thesis on the spot. In less than 5 minutes, she had completed the translation of the main content. After reading it, Chen Yang couldn't help but nod in approval. Well done. The essence of this graduation project's topic is to digitize the simulation of the decay of the electromagnetic flux with this equation. However, the difficulty lies in deriving this equation. It's impressive that you've managed to understand it to this extent in such a short time. Hearing Chen Yang's praise, the burly man who had just been arguing with Pan Jun now appeared somewhat shy. He rubbed his head and said to Chen Yang, "Teacher Chen, your words make me feel ashamed. I merely organized what you taught me." "That's already quite good," Chen Yang said with a smile. "I feel I still have a long way to go. You've explained so much to me, yet I still can't fully grasp this set of equations," Gao Chun said apologetically. "The latter part of the derivation involves other mathematical concepts. If you come by during dinner tonight, I'll explain it to you." "Same rule as before, only once," Chen Yang said. "Really?" Gao Chun couldn't believe his luck came so quickly. "Thank you, Teacher Chen. I'll be here on time this afternoon. I promise to listen attentively." Nearby, Pan Jun and the others, seeing that Gao Chun had published in a top-tier journal simply by studying an equation from his graduation project, far exceeding the graduation requirements, couldn't help but feel tempted. "Teacher Chen, I want to listen too. There's no need, you wouldn't understand a single word." Wu Jingjing beside them couldn't suppress. "Teacher Chun, my junior high school classmate, came all the way from Tsinghua University to seek your guidance. Could he also sit in?" Wu Jingjing seized the opportunity to ask. "I almost forgot about him. If he understands the first part, then let him come too. No one else needs to attend. They wouldn't get it, and it would only be a waste of time." "Thank you, Teacher Chen. I'll tell him right away. I'm sure he'll be thrilled." Gao Chun and the others left, and the lab fell silent once more. Chen Yang remained at his computer silently calculating. The formulas were complex and obscure, incomprehensible to the untrained eye. Beside him, Pan Jun, Song Ji, and Zhou Hui wore complicated expressions. "How are your experiments going?" Pan Jun asked the other two. "Smoothly. Extraordinarily smoothly. It feels less like exploratory experiments and more like verification experiments. The results are exactly as Teacher Chen predicted. When I was working on my topic, I conducted background research. In the current academic world, no one is more cutting-edge or convincing than Teacher Chen," Song Ji said to Pan Jun. "Same for me. The experimental results are so perfect they seem fabricated. Even I doubt myself," Zhou Hui added. "Maybe it's because our topics are too simple, so they just worked out. I don't know. Forget it. As long as we get data and can publish papers, why worry so much? Do you really want to stay stuck in the lab with him forever?" "Exactly. What future is there in a lab? Someone like Gao Chun publishing in top journals is just lucky." Right after work that afternoon, Gao Chun and Chang Jiaming had already arrived outside Chen Yang's lab. Even though Gao Chun had already published in a top international journal, a single paper that could solidify his academic standing with many research institutions and universities extending offers including prestigious foreign schools, he had turned them all down. His future plan was clear: stay nowhere else but follow Chen Yang. Even a little guidance from him was immensely. After dinner, Chen Yang stopped his explanation. Looking at the two men who were still engrossed and frowning, he said, "Let's stop here for today. How much you absorb and digest is up to you." "Thank you, Teacher Chen," Gao Chun and Chang Jiaming said, standing up and bowing respectfully to Chen Yang. Even though Chen Yang was a vocational school graduate and younger than them, in their eyes his image had become towering, evoking a sense of awe. Time passed bit by bit. In the blink of an eye, another 2 months went by. During these 2 months, Chen Yang had been immersed in designing his arc reactor. The small reaction ring had been manufactured, and the radioactive radium fuel for the reactor had also been prepared. The conversion device that transforms the controllable nuclear fusion energy into other forms of energy was completed as well. For now, it can only convert to electrical energy, laser energy, and electromagnetic pulses. "I hope to convert it into more forms in the future, but for now this is sufficient," Chen Yang murmured to himself. "The next step is equipment assembly and debugging. I hope it succeeds on the first try," he added. After finishing all preparations, Chen Yang called Wu Jingjing. "Could you help me find a testing site? I need to test my recent work." Wu Jingjing had just finished her shower and applied a face mask ready to sleep when she suddenly received Chen Yang's call. She had intended to scold him, but upon hearing his words, she forgot her anger and was filled with shock. What do you need a testing site for? Did you really succeed in building your small arc reactor?" Wu Jingjing couldn't believe the news. This was something straight out of science fiction. How could it possibly be made by Chen Yang alone with a mere 2 million in funding? "It's not quite a success yet since it hasn't been tested, but I feel it should be about ready and the test shouldn't have any issues. I have confidence in myself," Chen Yang said with unwavering assurance. "When do you plan to run the test? Any requirements for the testing site?" "The sooner the better, ideally tomorrow morning. As for the testing site, it doesn't need to be large, but I'd prefer it to have adequate safety measures. Though I have confidence in myself to be safe, I'd like a remote, uninhabited area. If something goes wrong, this thing could be as powerful as 1,000,000 tons of TNT, potentially leveling half of Modu." Upon hearing this, Wu Jingjing felt her head spinning. "You're absolutely insane. Conducting such a dangerous experiment right at Modus Dragon Science Institute. If anything goes wrong, you'd be taking everyone down with you. Wu Jingjing was somewhat angry. Nevertheless, she eventually relayed the entire matter to her grandfather. He wants to test a miniaturized arc reactor. He succeeded. Not confirmed yet, he wants to run the test as soon as possible. Wu Xian immediately grasped the gravity of the situation. Old Qian, get up. Call our old comrades and head to the Dragon Science Institute at once. Wu Xian said into the phone. Then he got out of bed dressed and called his secretary. Let's go to the Dragon Science. Seeing Wu Jingjing frozen, he frowned. Why aren't you changing? Me. Wu Jingjing pointed at herself. I have to go too. Of course. Didn't Professor Chen tell you to find a testing site by tomorrow morning? As his secretary, isn't that your job? But it's already 11 at night, old man, Wu Jingjing said reluctantly. This can't wait. Even if it's 2 in the morning, you have to get up and handle it immediately. Change now and come with me. Wu Xian said in a tone that brooked no argument. Wu Jingjing had no choice but to change and follow old master Wu Xian to the Dragon Science Institute. At the institute on the 10th underground floor in a secret meeting room, Qian Siliang, Wu Xian, Yuan Wei, and others sat in chairs. Before them was a massive screen displaying participants much like the previous meeting on controlled nuclear fusion, including by Jingli and Yuan Tianfang. Old Wu, what's so urgent that you called everyone up in the middle of the night? Asked one white-haired academician. Is there a problem with the Black Dragon project that needs collective discussion? Another academician inquired. The Black Dragon project is progressing smoothly. We've encountered a few minor issues, but we've resolved them, and Chen Yang personally helped with those we couldn't. As it stands, the project has no problems. Barring any surprises, it can be completed a few months ahead of schedule, Wu Xian said. Chen Yang is truly a rare talent. I heard that just the equations from his thesis guidance project were extracted by a math student and published in the world's top mathematics journal, an academician asked with a hint of envy. That's right, Qian Siliang said. He designed the project and derived the formulas. Math student Gao Chun organized those equations and got a paper in math. What a formidable younger generation. Truly awe-inspiring. Qian Siliang added. I said back then that your Dragon Science Institute's Moda Nuclear Energy Research Institute had struck gold. Now it seems you found a treasure trove. We had no idea Professor Chen would be so outstanding. Not only a master in physics, but also a genius in mathematics. Wu Xian's face beamed with pride and satisfaction. Enough showing off, or your grin will split your ears. The reason I called everyone here late is also about Professor Chen. What's wrong? Is he unhappy with your institute and looking to transfer? I heard no one there was willing to assist him. Utterly blind and foolish. Academician Yu from Yanjing's Tsinghua University said excitedly. Come to us and we'll provide a full team, another academician chimed in. I heard you only approved $2 million for his new research. Come to our university. We'll put up $200 million from our own funds, not a cent from the state, and all results go to the nation. We can also offer a lab building and a team of overseas PhDs and young academic leaders, as is with Chen Yang casually guiding a math student to publish in a top journal, like math his stature had risen. Mathematics is the foundation of all sciences, physics, chemistry, biology, life sciences, and a great mathematician can catalyze many other breakthroughs. $200 million is absolutely worth it. Wu Xian and Qian Siliang scanned the room, smirking at the hijacked meeting agenda. Don't think I don't know what you old foxes are scheming. I tell you, Professor Chen is very comfortable here, everything is fine, and he's satisfied. Not only has he guided a math student to a major breakthrough, but he himself has made significant progress in research, outcomes of great importance to our nation's military and civilian sectors. Wu Xian's words stirred the room again. Another major discovery in such a short time. What is it? Someone asked. A miniaturized portable arc reactor, Wu Xian said. A miniaturized portable arc reactor. What's that? Some academicians didn't understand. Jingjing, give these old folks a briefing, Wu Xian instructed his granddaughter. Wu Jingjing nodded, then played a pre-edited clip from a movie about miniaturized reactors. Wu Xian paused the video and pointed a laser at the power device on Iron Man's chest on the screen. The miniaturized arc reactor. Wu Xian's eyes gleamed as he watched the glowing ring on Iron Man's chest in the video. If, as his granddaughter suggested, this device could be successfully developed, it would revolutionize the Dragon Kingdom's power systems and provide an immense boost to its military industry, perhaps even enabling it to rival the United States. Isn't this just a concept from a sci-fi movie? Can it really be built? An old academician asked, watching the video with skepticism. I also find this extremely challenging. Although Teacher Chen has solved the problem of controlled nuclear fusion, that doesn't guarantee success in nuclear energy research. Indeed, the theoretical foundation for controlled nuclear fusion has been around for decades. The real difficulties lie in high-temperature resistant materials and ignition, neither of which is necessarily related to nuclear energy research. That's right. I think this is a bit too aggressive. Do we have any documentation? I believe we need to conduct a preliminary feasibility study to identify and manage any potential risks in advance. I agree. Let's first form a team to evaluate and assess this project. Remember last time we had a physical model for controlled nuclear fusion. This time we have nothing but a foreign sci-fi film. The experts and professors were cautious, with almost no one agreeing to proceed with the experiment. Seeing this, Wu Jingjing's expression turned grim. Dear teachers, I understand your concerns, but Chen Yang has devoted all his efforts to developing the small reactor. From theoretical calculations to energy conversion simulations, he has done everything repeatedly, spending every day in the lab, even forgetting to eat and sleep. Moreover, he strives for perfection in every step and has absolute confidence in himself. So I hope all of you can have faith in him too. Jingjing is right. Chen Yang is an extremely serious and responsible person. It is said that he succeeded on his first attempt with the experimental model of controlled nuclear fusion. His scientific rigor and foundational skills give us reason to trust him, Chen Yang said to the group. But such a dangerous nuclear test must be conducted in Base No. 1. You all know how complex the procedures are to activate Base No. 1. The numerous steps, the extensive involvement, and the wide-reaching impact. Even the final test results and reports must be submitted to the Red Wall. If in the end nothing is achieved, how will we explain it to the other departments? An academician asked. Upon hearing this, everyone fell silent. They all understood the immense implications of making the major decision to activate Base No. 1. They exchanged uneasy glances. Wu Jingjing looked around the room, then turned her gaze to her grandfather. Wu Xian clenched his fist and addressed the group. In any experiment, there is a possibility of success or failure. No one can guarantee success. You're only thinking about how to answer to superiors and subordinates if the experiment fails. But have you considered that if he could have succeeded this time, yet we hesitated and delayed, causing a major breakthrough to be shelved? In today's increasingly competitive environment, what impact would that have on the Dragon Kingdom's international standing and influence? Wu Xian swept his gaze across the room again and said firmly, I trust Chen Yang's abilities. He is a steady person who wouldn't act recklessly. I am willing to vouch for him. If anything goes wrong, I will take full responsibility. The group looked at Wu Xian, surprised by his stance. Count me in. I also trust Teacher Chen and am willing to vouch for him. Chen Yang said similarly. Extraordinary people do extraordinary things. They cannot be judged by ordinary standards. I also trust Teacher Chen and am willing to vouch for him, added by Jingli, chairman of the Nuclear Energy Committee. With 3 major figures backing him, this was an unprecedented level of support. Director Peng, with the 3 of us vouching for him, can we get special approval for Chen Yang's reactor test? Bai Jingli asked, as everyone turned to Peng Tianfang on the screen. As the head of the Science and Technology Bureau, he had significant authority over the use of such major test bases. No. According to the rules for Base No. 1, of the backing of 3 people is insufficient to meet the activation conditions. Hearing this, Wu Xian, Chen Yang, Bai Jingli, and Wu Jingjing all looked disheartened. However, if I also trust Teacher Chen and am willing to vouch for him, I can report to the Base No. 1 committee and apply for special approval. What? You're willing to vouch for him? This? Everyone stared at Peng Tianfang in shock. They understood the profound implications and enormous risks of Director Peng's guarantee. If anything went wrong, he would be the primary person responsible. Experiments inherently carry risks, and this specially approved test involves unknown dangers. To achieve substantial results, we must be willing to pay a price, Director Peng said. Thank you, Director Peng, Wu Jingjing said excitedly to the screen. No, I should thank you. You are the ones silently contributing to the Dragon Kingdom's national strength. You've worked hard, Peng Tianfang said to Wu Jingjing. You've worked even harder, Wu Jingjing replied. All right, I won't keep you any longer. Elder Wu, please draft a plan. He'll prepare the special approval procedures so we can complete the process by tomorrow morning and officially begin the test at Base No. 1. Good. He'll send it to you in 2 hours. That night was ordinary for many in the Dragon Kingdom, but for the experts of the Nuclear Energy Committee and Director Peng, it was a sleepless night. The next day, around 10 in the morning, Wu Jingjing, with red-rimmed eyes and a weary expression, rushed into the lab, holding the approval document, her face full of excitement. Approved. It's been approved. Your test application has been approved. You can proceed with the test now, she said, handing the document to Chen Yang. Chen Yang glanced at it and was startled. On the small document were over a dozen bright red seals from various major institutions, including the Dragon Kingdom's Ministry of Military Affairs. In the signature column, 2 bold and powerful characters were written, approved. The signature, Long Jiuxiao, first Grand Marshal of the Dragon Kingdom's military. Chen Yang's pupils contracted. He hadn't expected such a small test to involve so many departments, even the Dragon Kingdom's war god Long Jiuxiao. Wu Jingjing was brimming with excitement. This is personally approved by the war god. How cool. The war god also asked me to tell you to go ahead and do it. Such an honor was exceedingly rare in all of Dragon Country. Pack up and let's head over, Wu Jingjing said. Chen Yang nodded. He placed the miniature arc reactor energy converter and other equipment into cases along with some additional testing devices, collecting 4 large cases in total. After packing, Chen Yang called Long Zhan. Half an hour after hanging up, the roar of helicopters was heard once. This time there were not 1, but 3 helicopters. They landed, and over a dozen fully armed soldiers disembarked. 2 stood guard at the entrance while the others followed Long Zhan into the lab. Professor Chen. Long Zhan reporting for duty. What are your orders? Long Zhan entered, saluted Chen Yang with solemn formality, and awaited his command. He had received orders from above to ensure Professor Chen's absolute safety. Please have these equipment loaded, Chen Yang said to Long Zhan. Long Zhan gestured to the men behind him, and all the equipment was carried onto the helicopters. Let's go, Chen Yang said to Wu Jingjing once the equipment was transferred. Yes, Wu Jingjing replied with equal gravity. Behind Chen Yang, Zhou Huipanjun and the others watched dumbfounded, their faces full of anticipation. Even though they disliked the research and had no confidence in it, seeing the scale of the operation, they knew something significant was underway. Professor Chen, since Jingjing can go, can we come along for a look? Zhou Hui asked with a fawning smile. Yeah, Professor Chen, we could assist you. Song Ji also looked on with eager anticipation. No need. For you, the most important thing is your graduation thesis. Finish your projects first before thinking about anything else. With that, Chen Yang turned and left. The helicopters roared away, the powerful winds from their rotors tousling the hair of the 3 men and leaving their thoughts equally chaotic. Professor Chen doesn't plan to let us get deeply involved, Song Ji said, unable to hide his disappointment. Who cares if we're not involved? Zhou Hui sneered. What's the point of doing these pointless experiments all day? Zhou Hui scoffed. Exactly. In this day and age, it's all about money. Making atomic bombs isn't as profitable as selling tea eggs. That still holds true. Panjun laughed. Then the 2 headed toward the lab. Song Ji stared at the helicopter, now a black dot on the horizon, a hint of melancholy in his eyes. 20 minutes later, Long Zhan led Chen Yang back to the Black Dragon base. Professor Chen, your experiment carries a high risk level, so we've secured test base now. 1 for you. Rest here for a while and let them prepare. Once everything is ready, they'll escort you there, Wu Xian said to Chen Yang with a smile. All right. Chen Yang then sat down in Wu Xian's office. Test base No. 1, where you'll be conducting the experiment, was originally established at the founding of the nation to develop the atomic bomb. Later, due to the Global Alliance Treaty, it was decommissioned for a time. 20 years ago, for certain reasons, the base was reactivated. The test site is within a 1000-kilometer military exclusion zone. Currently, only major projects with a certain level of risk are conducted here. Each experiment requires approval from over half of the committee experts, followed by submission to the Science and Technology Bureau. The Special Office of the Science and Technology Bureau then reviews it, submits it to the Military Department, which reviews it, and finally Dragon Capital must give its approval. Every experiment enforces an airspace control zone spanning 1,000 kilometers. Simultaneously, 36 military satellites maintain full space alert, and the rocket force remains on standby to prevent high-altitude surveillance. So it's not activated lightly, but once it is, it's bound to be earth-shattering. Wu Xian said to Chen Yang. He didn't want to add extra pressure, but feared Chen Yang might not grasp the gravity of the situation and act too casually. Elder Wu, thank you. I won't let everyone down, Chen Yang said solemnly. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. It's not that failure isn't allowed at the test base, but that failure must be meaningful. I understand, Chen Yang replied. A few minutes later, Long Zhan and Wu Jingjing re-entered. Everything is ready. Prepare to board, Wu Jingjing said. Chen Yang stood up and said to Wu Xian, Elder Wu, wait for my good news. Good? I look forward to your next masterpiece, Wu Xian said with a smile. Chen Yang nodded and walked outside. A shuttle bus was parked at the entrance. He boarded it and headed toward the airport. 5 minutes later, they arrived at the Black Dragon Base Airport. On the runway sat a gray-green military transport plane. Per protocol, all experiments at Base No. 1 are transported by transport aircraft, Long Zhan explained to Chen Yang. Chen Yang nodded in thanks. They boarded and took off. The plane flew smoothly, and 2 voices echoed in the passenger cabin. Xiaolong 037 reporting for escort duty. Rest assured. Xiaolong 061 reporting for escort duty. Rest assured. Chen Yang looked through the window to see 2 fighter jets flanking the transport plane, his heart pounding. When he saw their design, he was even more astonished. These were the latest 6th-generation fighters, just commissioned. Isn't this a bit over the top? Chen Yang said to Long Zhan and Wu Jingjing. Wu Jingjing, gazing at the fighters, was equally stunned. She had only heard of the high security level at Base No. 1 before, but never imagined it would be this extreme. Any experiment conducted at Base No. 1 is a national treasure, so it must not be easily exposed to outsiders. Therefore, both the level of secrecy and security are set to the highest. Long Zhan explained to Chen Yang. In addition to what we see, ground missile units, space reconnaissance, and maritime surveillance and escort have all received orders to guard the experiment, ensuring no external interference. Hearing Long Zhan's words, Wu Jingjing, who had been relatively calm, now felt a flutter of panic. She had never imagined that a single experiment would require such an enormous expenditure of manpower, material, and financial resources. Now she could somewhat understand why so many experts had opposed submitting the application the previous night. The stakes were simply too high. She couldn't help but glance at Chen Yang, who sat nearby. At that moment, he appeared calm and relaxed, seemingly enjoying the scenery outside the window. With such a huge setup, aren't you nervous at all? Wu Jingjing couldn't help but exclaim inwardly. Oh well, there's no turning back now. At this point, I can only hope your experiment succeeds.